Gary, I wish you were coming down for LA Guns Faster Pussycat.
That would be a fun time.
Yeah, man. It's going to be great.
I don't
All right,
know.
we are live.
What's up, everybody? Let's see what we got.
ABC. Anybody yet? Yeah, zero live chat.
Wow, we got four people already. Look at that.
Nice. So at Purchase Street today, John 5 showed up.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was really cool. I wasn't there, but he showed up, was hanging with Roger, which is really cool. I'm hoping that when LA Guns and Faster Pussycat play, I'm going to hang out there and try to meet Tracy Guns or Phil Lewis or someone else.
So they play, there's a, next to the record store, there's a place they play, right? Or
yep.
whatever.
Yeah, it's called the Vault. So
okay.
it's half the bar and half it's a concert venue. And Roger used to be a drum tech. He's a drummer, but he used to be the drum tech for Twisted Sister. And then his uncle was the drummer for Billy Squier. So he knows a lot of these bands. Like he knows LA Guns on a personal basis. So, you know, a lot of times, you know, these people that he knows, like the other day, the London Choir Boys played in New Bedford. And they stopped by Purchase Street, and he has like pictures of them. Enough's Enough has been at that store. Dee Snider has been at that store. JJ French has been at that store. So sometimes he'll do autograph signings, but for the most part, it's just, you know, people coming by, buying records, hanging out. So I'm pretty lucky. I mean, I think if you like hard rock and heavy metal, it is like the greatest. You know, I'm sure it's the greatest for Jeff too, because he doesn't care about new wave, and Jeff gets the deal of a lifetime. But you know, if you like jazz and rock and jazz or new wave and things like that, he doesn't have a huge selection of that. But for heavy metal, hard rock, 80s rock, he's got a ton of it. So everybody go see Roger at Purchase Street. And,
Anthony wants to know what I'm drinking. This is Two Hearted Ale. It's an IPA. It's from Bell's Brewery, which is in Kalamazoo.
Nice.
And
obviously, Brandon, if you're ever in Massachusetts, hit me up, man. I would love to hang with you.
Oh, most definitely.
Around.
Most definitely.
Where do you live, Brandon?
I'm right outside of St. Louis.
Okay.
On the Missouri side.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Josh had actually picked a couple topics for us to kind of toss around. And the first had to do with Record Store Day. And what would we change about Record Store Day? Is there anything that you wish they would do differently, or anything that in particular kind of irks you about Record Store Day that, you know, maybe you would change, or that kind of puts you off Record Store Day altogether?
I mean, there's one thing that scares me about Record Store Day. And what scares me is that the record stores have to shell out a ton of money for these releases, right? And a lot of times the releases will sell, but other times you go to a record store and for months they're sitting on these releases. And I do have a little bit of fear, because I love my local record stores and I want them to be profitable and I want them to make money. And you really go into it blind. Like obviously Taylor Swift, you know, is going to sell, right? Like I'm sure a record store is like, okay, well, we're not gonna worry about that. But you know, like the LA Guns, like I love the LA Guns. Aaron loved it. Chris loved it. But there's not a huge market for the LA Guns reissue, right? So most record stores are either going to order it or they're not. So it's like a slippery slope, right? Like they don't want to get stuck with it. So yeah, it can be really difficult. I am really lucky because I live in an area where there's just tons of record stores. I mean, Newbury Comics is the largest independent chain record store in the country. And I think we checked when you guys were down that there was like 20 locations. So I literally can drive from Newbury Comics to Newbury Comics to Newbury Comics until I find what I want, not mentioning the other record stores. But if you talk about Aaron, who has one record store in his town, it can be really difficult to get these releases. So to me, I do love the spirit of Record Store Day. Every day for me is Record Store Day because I support my local shops as much as I possibly can. But I wish that I would rather see what Record Store Day is doing now with their Record Store Day exclusives, where once a month they come out with a release. Like in August, one of my all-time grails, this is like top 5 grail for me, Chris Isaak, Heart-Shaped World, is being released as a Record Store Day exclusive. So only independent record stores get this. I like that idea, and have a couple drops each month instead of having this one big day where these record stores have to shell out a ton of money. But I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I know for me personally, I haven't really been big on Record Store Day in probably 7 or 8 years. I mean, I've said this a number of times. I love what it does for independent record stores, and even if I was the king and had the power, I wouldn't change a single thing about that. But just on a very personal note, the exclusive thing about Record Store Day is something that really just gets on my nerves, and I feel is completely unnecessary and unwarranted. I mean, it's like there's certain things when you're trying to generate a market to sell something, so you have a certain number, people are fighting for it and everything like that. But it's also one of those things where if you doubled the amount of almost every single pressing that came out on Record Store Day or made it available, everyone that wants to buy it and wants to get their hands on it is still going to go out and try to get it. They're still going to be fanatical about getting their copy, whether you made 1,000 copies or if you made 20,000 copies. So, I mean, obviously there's only so many plants and you only have so much time and all of this. But I think just like the making it tighter and tighter and more difficult, I just don't understand why. If there's 30 people in line waiting to get something, let's make it so that a majority of those 30 people can get it. Why limit it to 5? And just all the uncertainty that's just surrounding it. I think it's supposed to make it exciting, but it just seems that it really just makes it stressful for everyone. The buyer, the store, it's just one big thing of stress. And to me, that's not what it should be about.
Yeah, that's totally how I feel.
Okay.
Yeah, just the whole stress of it all. I mean, it's almost not even fun. It's almost not enjoyable because you look at the list, you have your heart set on something, you show up. In some cases, you stand out there early, and I know I got there, I would say maybe like an hour early. I'm not getting there like at the crack. I'm not getting there at 4 a.m. There's nothing worth being that, sitting outside for 4 hours, for a record. But, and then there's people ahead of you. You start stressing about, well, are they going to take what I want? And are they going to have enough copies? Are they even going to have what I want? Or was this just a waste of time? I always ends up being like one title that I don't end up getting that usually I'm kind of like bummed about because, well, if I want to pay triple on eBay or Discogs, I guess I can eventually get it, and that's kind of like, I mean, and I always go back to those live sets that they came out with last year. I mean, I can't imagine they pressed very many of those. I've got about 8 record stores around here within reasonable traveling distance. Not a single one had either of those records. I haven't seen them since. They're ridiculously expensive online. And it's like, why can't you just repress it for the general public now? Like for people that wanted it, that missed out on it on Record Store Day. Now, if you're a huge Police fan and you missed out on it like I did, then it's like, well, it's the one that got away or the ones that got away. And that's what, it just kind of leaves a sour taste in my mouth that, they press so few copies and there's so much money to be made on it. If they made more copies available, because the RSD, whoever the record companies are, they're not getting that money. It's all the people that bought them up and are now reselling them on eBay that make the money.
Jeff, what do you think about, how Amoeba does this, where when you stand in line, they give you an order form and you write down everything you want. And then when you get inside, you hand them the order form and they give you a bag, right? Or they collect the order form before, then they give you the bag of what they have left. I honestly think Record Store Day should loosen the reins and let people pre-order through the record store. What I mean by that is Record Store Day list comes out. you could walk into your local record store and say, hey, Chuck, these are the 5 titles I'm looking for. Awesome. You put a pre-order in. Maybe the record store makes you pay in advance. Maybe they don't. That's up to the record store. And then you go in at some point that day and you collect your records. And, you know, the earlier you go in the pre-order, the more likely you're going to get your titles. And I think that, like, if they did that, it wouldn't create the mass hysteria. And then people would actually spend more time in the store that day buying other shit. Like, we stand in line, you get inside, you buy your record store titles, and then they want you to leave because the store can only hold so many people. But if you could go any point during the day and pick up your titles, I mean, I honestly think that'd be a better system.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with that because I understand, like, they don't want to make the records available online because that defeats the whole purpose of Record Store Day. The purpose of Record Store Day is to get people excited, get people out in record store days. You buy a couple of RSD titles, and then you pick up some other stuff in the record store besides. You know, I get that, but I almost wish like, give us a voucher or something, just like, you know, yeah, I was here. You didn't have it, like a rain check or something like that, that you can then redeem a code on the RSD website if you missed out on that record or something. You know, I don't know how it would work, but just something to take the stress out of it, take the frustration out of it. You know, I think that would just make it a much better experience for everybody. Angel is joining us. She says, what I sometimes hate is some local record shops price gouging the RSD titles right after RSD. You guys seen that?
Yeah, occasionally they will raise the price because, you know, in their mind, they're saying, well, this is what it's going for online, which, you know, I don't like that mentality. I agree, you know, with how this started out here with this conversation. I also feel like, I wish they would just press, you know, a lot more copies of that. So there's plenty of them there for people to come in. You're not so worried that they're not going to have it. But what I would like to do to add, to still have something that, you know, kind of makes you want to get there, is kind of make it a combination like what they do on Comic Book Day. They have what they call free Comic Book Day. And to get people to come into comic book stores, they'll have like 7 comic book titles that are free. And each person that comes in gets to pick like 2 or 3 out of that. And I think that would be really cool if they did that with Record Store Day. Like if they, you know, like this thing that Sam sent me, you know, this Blue Stingrays. So, you know, this is a 45. There's 2 songs. This could be like one of the 7 choices that you got. I mean, I think this would be great for like new artists. They could be part of that. It could just be an EP. It doesn't necessarily have to be a full album, but it draws interest to that person, you know, because like say somebody like me who's older and there's some new artist where I'm not going to think about it, but then I get this free album and I'm like, oh, wow, this is pretty cool. I also think it would be really cool for like older artists who, you know, like I'm thinking of last year, I think it was I bought this album of Cherie Currie from the Runaways. This is a great album, by the way. But, you know, most people, they're never going to think of buying that. And if they had like an EP of it, of some songs, and some people realize, wow, this is really cool, I want to go out and get the whole album. I mean, it just brings that much more interest to whichever artists were involved. And it's just a bonus to bring people in the store. And I think it's a way that the record companies can kind of thank the customers, considering how much they gouge us for the rest of the year. Hey, here's something free for that overpriced box set that you bought, or what, you know what I mean? Just a little more goodwill, because right now, you know, we're not feeling that with the record companies.
The first 3 years, Gary, of Record Store Day, Newbury Comics had a table set up of free 7 inches and CDs. And I remember getting 2 Lana Del Rey 7 inches, that are now worth a fortune. Unfortunately, my ex still has them. I should have taken them from her. But and I remember getting I'm trying to think of the other bands like Queens of the Stone Age, like a bunch of cool CD samplers. The free merch on Record Store Day when it first started was huge. And it seems like even though now it's more popular than ever, this year there was a poster, there was a pin, I think there was a CD sampler, but there used to be multiple.
A lot of places don't have those. They don't have that. I mean, I feel like if they had the records, everybody would get them. Yeah, I don't know. I just think I would like that, more than I would a pin or something. The other thing I would change on that is, every time they put out something like Dio, it's a picture disc.
Yes.
I mean, I there's so many times they put out these picture discs on Record Store Day, and a lot of people don't want picture discs. There'll be a record come out, and I think, hey, I'd like that. I'd like a pressing of that, but I don't really want a picture disc of it.
That's me.
That's like that Devo. Like, I got it. I'm not happy that it's a picture disc, but I mean, at least I have it. But I would have paid. Honestly, I would have paid, maybe $10 more just to have a copy that was in a regular sleeve. Maybe it was colored vinyl or something, but I'm just not into picture sleeves at all. I don't care. Like The Cure, some of their early albums like Faith and Pornography, hard to find them on vinyl. And yet they release picture discs on Record Store Day. Big deal. Like I want the album Pornography a lot on vinyl, but I don't want the picture disc. That's not the version that I'm after. And I don't know. I know Aaron is a big picture disc guy. He's got a lot of them. He actually, has them hanging up on his wall, which is like cool if that's your thing. But, I just want a decent record sleeve and kind of a facsimile of what the original album release looked like. But
do you guys think that, let's take The Cure, for instance. I really do feel like The Cure, this is like a ploy. If you notice the last few years, probably about 5 years, they've done picture discs, right? So they did the greatest hits, they did the acoustic greatest hits, they did Wish, they did Pornography, like you said. I honestly think that they're trying to get the diehard fans to buy those because that's the only way to really get it on vinyl now without spending a fortune on Discogs. And then as soon as they're done with their picture disc series, they're just going to release them on colored and black wax and get double dip. I kind of feel like the Beatles are doing that now they know that they're not pressing any analog pressings, and they're gonna all of a sudden get everybody to buy all these pressings and say, guess what, we've decided to do analog pressings again, and they get everybody to spend even more money.
It wouldn't surprise
me. Anthony's store has pizza and donuts.
I know. What the
store today? What? Damn, throw beer in there and I'm moving wherever you live.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, any record store that has beer, I am moving there. Like I'm already making plans to move to Massachusetts because of all the thrift store finds. But
Well, at Riverbend, we sell beer there, number one. So, even when you're coming in just for a regular day to dig or whatever else, they actually built all the shelves to where there's a little bar ledge on the front of all of them, so you can have a drink while you're digging.
Wow.
But then we usually also have is it shop squeeze, or I can't pronounce. I don't drink, so I don't remember the name or whatever. But he comes in on every Record Store Day too and sets up a table and just gives out free samples of beers and drinks and stuff like that. So there's always people tossing them away big time on our Record Store Days.
Wow, that would get me to spend more money if I was intoxicated.
Yeah,
that's the whole plan right there. And there'll be donuts inside. There's a taco truck outside, so that they really try to make it where it's a thing where people want to hang around, like kind of stay throughout the course of the day. And like you were saying, JC, maybe the store can only hold so many people, but the parking lot can hold as many as can stay out there with the bands playing and everything else. So it works out pretty good.
Yeah,
that sounds.
I saw you got that Dio record behind you. Gary, and Angel said that with all the Dio picture disc coming out, she thinks that Ronnie James Dio's wife is behind so many of those picture disc releases.
No doubt.
By the way,
She's
Angel's
like the Yoko Ono of his estate.
Yeah, Angel's a guy, right?
Angel's a guy. Yeah.
Oh, Angel, sorry.
That's okay. He's a cool guy. He sent me VLT.
I apologize. I'm not even trying to be funny.
Angel, thank you for the VLT,
I
bro.
don't know. Why did I think that? I don't know. Maybe I'm confusing it with another channel or something.
That's
No
good. Angel
offense.
doesn't have a channel, but he's going to start one. He's a good dude.
Nice. I'd love to see you, man. Jump on it. Love to have you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
more area.
So speaking of the Beatles, yeah, what's up? No analog stereo pressings. I mean, the only thing I can
because of
think
what
of,
Josh just said.
yeah. Well, and I know they did the mono box set analog, but the stereo, and I think it was just because they were so hot to, release the remixes that they did in 2009, or not the remixes, but the new stereo remastering that they did in 2009. They wanted to put that version out on vinyl. That's the only explanation I can think of. But yeah, I don't know. It feels a lot like, the original Star Wars trilogy, how George Lucas has steadfastly refused to release the original prints of, those movies. And all you're going to get is the special editions from now on out. It feels like the same way with the Beatles and the analog. Like, why wouldn't you? People would buy both.
Exactly.
No kidding.
Here's the thing is that first off, with Star Wars, Disney does say that they're going to do it, even though it pisses George Lucas off. We're eventually going to see the original Star Wars that we all saw as kids without the added fluff. But let's get back to the Beatles. So here's the deal. The record companies are saying that to take the master tapes out of the vault, it's the insurance, right? The insurance fee is so much money that it adds all this extra cost to the pressing of the actual vinyl record, where they have these digital files that are high-res digital files, and they say that the average consumer can't tell or can't hear the difference, right? But the reason why we collect records is because it's analog, right? Because it's warm, and when you listen to a Tone Poet or you listen to a MoFi or an analog productions pressing, I mean, you've heard the Doors at my house, right? Jeff, you could hear like the difference, right? The quality is amazing. You can hear the separation of the instruments. I'm afraid of this is that, so it used to be where when a box set would come out, a box set would either be a collection of albums or a collection of rarities, B-sides, and greatest hits. To give you an example of this, there'd be an Aerosmith box set, the Columbia years, and then it'd come out with something like that box set that had the matchstick on it that was all like the lost tracks. And that was the idea of a box set. Then when the vinyl records resurgence came out, we saw things like the Black Sabbath box set, which is now out of print, which was every single Black Sabbath Ozzy album. We saw things like the Tom Petty box sets, which were out of print, which are every single Tom Petty album. So they started to release these box sets of, hey, here's a complete discography. And you saw they did that with Ozzy 2 years ago, and that box set sells for like $1,700. So what they realize now, though, is that people will spend $100, $150 on an individual album with these one-step pressings and things along that lines, or these super deluxes. So they can either go, hey, we're going to give you a completely analog product on a vinyl that is 100% not recycled vinyl. This thing is going to sound better than anything you've ever heard before. And you're going to buy Jimi Hendrix Experience for $125, a record that you used to be able to buy an analog copy for $10 in the 80s or $5, right? They're going to sell you that same record for $125. And Jimi Hendrix not even alive. So this money's going to his estate or something else. So if you're the Beatles and you're looking at that saying, well, someone will pay $125 for Jimi Hendrix Experience, how much would they pay for Abbey Road? Right? They've got to be thinking this. They've got to be thinking, we're the Beatles. We can easily slap another $30 on there, right? And it's not like there's 1,000 of these Jimi Hendrix printed. There's like 10,000. So they're sending 10,000 copies at $125 a piece. Let's say that the Beatles, they pressed 30,000 copies at $170 a piece. Right? That's my thought process. That's the thing that scares me about, why we don't have analog pressings. Are they going to try to do something like that to us, which is fine. I have nothing against the super deluxes, but it's like in the 90s, and Gary could probably relate to this. In the 90s, the comic book boom, every cover had a foil cover or had a holographic cover, and comic books went from $1 to like $5 or $3.95, $4.95, where the point where children couldn't collect anymore, or the average consumer couldn't collect anymore, and they just gave up. And I'm just hoping that doesn't happen either. But I ramble. Go ahead, guy.
No, I get what you mean. And I've said that before about the whole variant type thing, flooding the market with that and doing so many different pressings. And, eventually people get tired of it and they burn out on it. I mean, everybody now is all jacked up about it. But at some point they're going to say enough is enough. And, or they're just going to drop out. They're going to drop out of the whole thing because they're like, this is just crazy. I get this copy and I think, oh, this is great. I love it. Oh, well, then here comes another copy of the same, doggone album. And it's what they get with comic books, to it kind of help really destroy that industry to a degree.
Well, that's what they did with that McCartney 3 album, is they came out with, now it's on green vinyl. Now it's on blue vinyl. Now it's on red vinyl. Now it's on flesh colored vinyl. Now it's, on invisible vinyl. It's like, come on, like now you're just playing us for fools.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, do we really need like 12 copies of McCartney 3? But it's like Paul McCartney's no dummy. He knows, like, okay, shit, every color under the rainbow, I'll put this album out on. And you got those Beatle fans that are going to buy it because they're like, oh, it's going to be worth $1,000, and they're probably right, but like at a certain point, it just feels like, it's just all a huge money grab.
Yeah.
Which kind of leads to the next topic of these deluxe box sets.
Yeah, the super deluxe. It's almost like, fast food, where it used to just be, small, medium, large, and then it's like extra large. Now it's super size. That's what they're doing with all these record releases. Now, I mean, and the new term is what did we learn from the George Harrison "All Things Must Pass"? What's the most elaborate set that you can buy?
The one that came with garden gnomes.
Yeah, the one that came with like a piece of wood from his estate, like for $1,000. It's like right here. Come on.
The thing is
Uber. Yeah, the Uber. Now we've moved beyond super deluxe. Now we're at Uber. We'll give you the artist some clippings of the artist's pubic hair, and people will pay $1,000 for that stuff. It's just ridiculous. But
the thing is, though, go ahead. I was just going to say that there are some super deluxes that are pretty reasonable, right? So like, I know that on my coming soon videos that I sometimes rain on people's parade with the coming soons because they frustrate me a little bit. But it's one thing when you're talking Black Sabbath and they're giving you 5 LPs, a poster, a tour laminate, and it's $100. You know what I mean? Like, I remember that Newbury Comics had those Black Sabbath box sets for like $109 to $89. They were all in that range. And I'm like, okay, well, that's a decent buy. That you're paying $20 per album if you're getting 5 records for $100, and you're getting a live concert. You're getting the remastered album, and it's a gatefold, and I'm all for that. So I don't want to rain on anybody's parade. What really kills me is when, it's like a 5 LP and it's $200 or $250, which we've seen, and $300, which we've seen. That really starts to rub me the wrong way, because it's kind of like, that's when you have to say to yourself, well, how often am I going to listen to these rarities? How often am I going to listen to these B-sides? When it's $100, I don't know. It makes it more reasonable to me. It seems it just seems ludicrous as we get to over, especially with a box set, because you got to figure that on average, I'm thinking $20 or less per vinyl that's in there. That's what I go in thinking. But yeah, it's gotten crazy.
Yeah, I love John. John says the only thing you're missing out on is all the damn money you spent. I totally agree.
Yeah, he's kind of responding to Calvin Wazoo, who said, people have this fear of missing out. I mean, look at us. I mean, we have channels where we talk about this stuff. And so, we're like, oh, well, gosh, Jeff Witcher got that. I'd really like to get that too. All the other cool people are getting it. I mean, it's kind of like that mentality sometimes.
Well, Mazzy did a video. I don't know if you guys saw Mazzy's video. It was, I don't know, like out within the last couple of weeks, but he talked about the whole FOMO thing, and that people are buying albums, leaving them sealed, never playing them, and I mean, sure, there's a profit to be made, but like buy music that you want to buy because you're going to listen to it and because you enjoy it and because you appreciate it, not because, oh, I'm worried if I don't buy this, then everybody else is going to have it and I'm going to regret it later on. And
yeah.
And some of these like super deluxe is like 8 discs. The original album and then 7 discs of outtakes and alternate takes and demos and live shows. Especially like for Nevermind, like, am I going to want to hear those songs like 8 times over? Well, I need the demo. And then I need the version from, the Seattle Amphitheater or whatever. And then I need to hear the alternate mix when they went to a different studio, and then I need to hear the same songs. I mean, it like once maybe like hearing that is fine, but like they put all that stuff out on Spotify, for the most part. So if you need to hear it, like it's on there. Listen, I'm a hypocrite because any super deluxe that the Beatles put out, like I immediately buy. So I recognize I'm probably part of the problem, but,
Brandon, do you have people that go into your store and buy it and keep it sealed? Do you experience that?
I mean, people don't talk about it a lot. Like the only time you actually hear someone verbally say it is like I remember a guy came in a few weeks ago and we had a copy of a Diary of a Madman, an original pressing that was sealed. And I remember him saying like, I can't open this, or
right.
So if there's grails and stuff like that on the wall, oftentimes they'll say, I won't open it. But other than that, no, I don't have a lot of people that ever kind of talk about that. But I actually kind of have a little bit of a different philosophy when it comes to keeping albums sealed, because I have a ton of albums in my collection that are sealed. I mean, probably a good 150, if not more, albums that are sealed in my collection. But, there is always that fear of missing out thing that does take place. I mean, obviously, especially with the resurgence and so many things coming out, I never buy anything because I'm thinking I'm going to keep this sealed and I'm going to flip it later and blah, blah, blah. It's just there's more albums that I want than I can afford, plain and simple. So sometimes if I buy something, I might buy it and say, I don't have a dire need to listen to this album right now because I've heard it 50 gazillion times. I'm just happy to have it on vinyl. And so I kind of give myself that security blanket to be able to say, if I'm still holding this thing 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, and I decided, I wish I wouldn't have spent money on that. I wish I would have got this instead. It's not, a snap of our fingers, you can get your money back, with no hassle whatsoever, selling it online or whatever the case may be. So that's kind of been my attitude of go ahead and grab it. It's money sitting on the shelf. If you want to get rid of it, you can. And I just don't have this overwhelming need to feel like I have to open every single album as soon as I get it. It's just whenever it hits me and I'm ready to spin, I might have bought that album 2 months ago, but for whatever reason, I'm craving to hear it today. And it's crack it open, spin it, enjoy it, and just kind of go from there.
We had the 50th anniversary of albums released in 1971 last year. And I'm shocked. Last year would have been the 50th anniversary of the Who's Next. But they released on Record Store Day, they released Face Dances. And they released like a super deluxe box set of the Who Sell Out. Like, how are you not commemorating the anniversary of one of the greatest albums of the 1970s? But you're putting out like goddamn bass dances. Are you kidding me? Or one of the worst albums in the Who's entire discography. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I like the Who Sell Out, but can we wait till 2027, or something like at least an anniversary that makes sense? How do you completely ignore the anniversary of Who's Next if you're the Who? Or same like Led Zeppelin 4, there was no, I don't know, any commemoration of Led Zeppelin 4 last year. And Led Zeppelin 4 is one of the greatest albums of the 1970s, so I don't get that. You get super deluxe box sets of, some of the most mundane albums. And then, for Who, I don't know who's in charge of putting out the Who. I don't know if it's MCA or who, Pete Townsend or whatever, why you would skip commemorating that album. And yet, well, we're going to put out bass dances. We're going to put out, the Who Sell Out. What?
And not only did they do the RSD, but then they came back and also did that Abbey Roads, those Abbey Road pressings. Yeah. And again, it's like fantastic pressings. I'll grab those things anytime I can find them. It's like, and this is the Who album that you chose?
I know.
It makes no sense.
And now they're coming out with It's Hard. Ooh, It's Hard. Oh, every Who fan clamoring for a reissue of It's Hard.
And It's Hard is probably the easiest.
All those Kenny Jones fans out there, what you've been waiting for, you've been clamoring.
We do have some comments, if I could read them. Yeah. But we'll start off with Angel. He said the Nirvana Nevermind Anniversary album, they sold out the regular edition very quickly, but they had a lot of the deluxe box set. There are a lot of controversy about that. Yep. Thunderstruck said the worst is like a record store day when I miss out on something I want that I miss out on because someone buys multiple copies to sell. Yeah, so he's upset that someone has bought multiple copies. And then Angel put, there are some people that get in line on record store day and buy records that they don't even listen to. They just want to flip them. You're absolutely right. For example, the Taylor Swift 7-inch. And then Dwayne said, none of my records are sealed. I try to keep the hype stickers on them. Dwayne, I love you, man. The hype's all the way, brother. They're meant to be played. That's just my opinion. But, I do like what you said, Brandon. Like, it fascinates me now that I open all my records right away. Because you made perfect sense there. Like, I'm not going to sell them, but, like, why not just wait till I want to listen to them? I don't know. Maybe I have some kind of weird disorder.
And the cool thing about it, too, just even kind of in light of what he said, like, in my mind, there's no wrong way to do it. If you open everything, you keep things sealed, because it's do your thing and whatever makes you happy. For me personally, I feel like what's oftentimes forgotten about is that, like, we always say it's about the music. It's about the music. And yes, that's what drives us all to do what we do, is because the music that we love. But let's also be very honest. If it was just about sound waves hitting our ears, we wouldn't have all this crap. We have digital files, a nice simple laptop, and we can hear the music. So there's obviously something far beyond just the music that makes us get into vinyl, which is dealing with all of the tangible elements of it, the collecting, just all of those things that kind of go along with it. So anytime that someone, and again, it's no problem if anyone else doesn't go that route, but if someone ever asks me, like, well, what's the point of having a record sealed because it's supposed to be played? And my first response is, like, would you go into, like, someone who collected a baseball memorabilia? What's the point of having that bat on the wall? Like, bats are meant to play baseball. If you're not playing baseball with it, get rid of the bat. Or you're a stamp collector. Why do you have these stamps in these little books? And why do you have that one stamp in a little box? Stamps are meant to be mailed. If you're not going to mail a letter, get rid of the stamps. Like, we would never say that in any of those situations, but when it comes to music and vinyl, we'll say that pretty quick. And so there's just some elements. It's like the same joy that someone gets out of collecting baseball cards, gets out of collecting, sports memorabilia. there's that side of music where I like music, I love music, and I love music stuff. And sometimes having a sealed copy of an album, I get pleasure out of having a sealed copy of that album. And when I crack it open, I get pleasure out of cleaning it and playing it. And so it's just one of the many aspects of how you can enjoy music overall. And again, that's nothing against anyone who wants to open every single record they have, because the key is when you step inside of your music room and your music world, whatever puts that big ass smile on your face, that's exactly what you do and nothing else.
Yeah, I mean,
that's so, I'm sorry, that's so true. But like, you know, you think about like a band like Kiss, you know, like, yeah, I could, you know, listen to all their music on Spotify, but you know, what Kiss fan, if you're at least in our generation, hasn't gone into a record store, you see a copy of Love Gun and you immediately look and see, is the gun in there? Is a copy of the cardboard gun? Is it, you know, it's sort of like the thrill of the chase. And same, you know, to some extent for like Sgt. Pepper, oh, is the insert with the mustaches, you know, the cardboard cutout. If it's the White Album, are the 4 portraits, is the lyric sheet, you know, the poster in there, or, you know, I mean, sure, there's other examples for other bands, but, you know, I think it's like, you know, like you say, well, yeah, you know, anybody now, you like music, you don't even need to own a single copy of a CD or album or cassette. You can just have it all on Spotify. But at least for, you know, I think my generation, you know, I'm 38 years old. And, you know, for me, it's all about, you know, why is that so? Why is that so hard to
smooth too?
Yeah. You're just
anyway, okay. So maybe that's not true, but you know what I'm talking about. It's sort of like, for me, it's like, yeah, Spotify is fine if I'm in my car and I just want to listen to music, you know, like while I'm traveling. Obviously, I can't take a vinyl record in the car. But for me, I need the artwork. I need to look at the lyric sheet. I need it how I remember. I love, you know, like Elton John albums, for instance, you know, you had those thick booklets, or you had, you know, the elaborate gatefolds. In some instances, like for Captain Fantastic, you had multiple books, you had a poster, you had so many things that were a part of that experience. It wasn't just the music, it was the packaging, it was the artwork, it was the label, it was the inserts. You know, there were so many things about it. You know, the hype sticker.
Yeah. You know, yet last night, Landon, the 6-year-old, I looked at him, I said, "Want to go play some records?" He's like, "Yeah." He always wants to hear Kiss or Spice Girls. That's what he wants to hear, either Kiss or Spice Girls. He's 6 years old. So I said, "Buddy, we're going to listen to something different," right? So I pull out the Dangerous Toys album with the scary clown on it. And he's like, "Yes, I want to listen to that." And I put the record on, and he is rocking out. And Michelle comes down with this horrified look on her face, because she's like, she can hear the music coming down the stairs. Like, oh my goodness, what are they listening to? And he is rocking out. But the album cover is what sucked him in. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Seeing that, I was like, yeah, I want to listen to that. And yeah, it was so cool. But you're absolutely right. I mean, with a digital file, I wouldn't have gotten that same experience with Landon last night. You know, we would have been listening to the Spice Girls.
That's the same reason I own
Kiss
like
fans?
3 Jennifer Lopez CDs.
Well, how many people became Kiss fans because of the cover of Kiss Alive and looking how awesome that was? Yeah. You know, if you had just heard the music on the radio, I mean, yeah, you would have thought, well, that's cool, you know, but seeing that image, opening that gatefold, you know, looking at everything that came, you know, as part of those. I mean, and Kiss is a great example because, you know, talk about value for your money. I mean, they definitely, you know, when you bought a Kiss album, you got photographs, you got, you know, in some cases, you know, extras, inserts, or, you know, a cardboard gun, you know, whatever the case might be. But, you know, and I think that's been lost. I mean, hopefully there are some, you have you know, I don't want what you call a generation, whatever generation we're on right now, you know, are starting to appreciate more vinyl. You know, I've got almost 2 generations of kids. I've got kids who are older, who are in their 20s now, and I've got younger kids. And the kids that are in their 20s, like, they went an entire period never, you know, except for the records that I had. But, you know, a lot of their peers who had parents who didn't collect albums, it's like, what's a record? what's a cassette? You know, all they knew, maybe they knew CDs. That might have been like the most recent medium, but that was when Napster was big. That was when all the streaming stuff started coming out, downloading music instead of actually having to go out to a record store and purchase it. You know, I think like the generation now, I think because of that vinyl resurgence, you know, kids today, at least like, oh yeah, I know what a record is. You know, there was kind of that generation that was sort of born in the 1990s that maybe, you know, when the vinyl resurgence hadn't happened, you know, it was like, you'd see a record and be like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, well, now they see them in Walmart.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
I was in Newbury Comics the other day, and there were two kids. They were probably about 12 and 13. And the boy says to the girl, "This is a vinyl record." And the girl goes, "I know that." And he goes, "Do you know how to play it?" And she goes, "No idea."
What's funny, because I remember when CDs came out, like I didn't have a CD player, but I'm like, well, they're round. Could you play them on a turntable? Like I had no idea, you know. I mean, that's like when they were brand new, thinking,
yeah.
Well, I'd love to, like, especially when the Beatles, you know, came out on CD for the first time. You know, CDs have been out, but I never really stood up and took notice. And then it's like, oh shit, what's this Please Please Me album? I've never heard of that before. With the Beatles, what is that? Or Beatles for Sale. I've never seen that cover before. You know, I'm used to Beatles 6 and Beatles 65. You know, but it's funny because I remember like, well, I wonder if you put the needle down on the CD, like, can it still play, you know, but.
Yeah, I remember the first time I saw an iPod, one of my ex-girlfriends got one, and I had no idea about the technology or anything like that. And I was just like, where are the buttons? It's like, it's like a big little white box. And I just totally did not get it.
Yeah, Brandon, same thing happened to me. And she hands it to me. I'm like, what is this? And then I realized she had every single Smith song on this one little device, like the entire catalog. I'm like, you have their whole discography on this one little thing?
That's cool.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, well, I remember like when Napster came out, you know, it was like my mind was blown, the idea that you could just double click on a file. And I mean, you know, that's back in the days of dial-up. And 4 hours later, you could actually have a song, you know, that you wanted, you know, or in some cases, you know, I remember like in the dial-up days where you'd be like waiting like 45%, you know, I've waited 3 hours, I'm at 45% because I wanted like one song, and then you end up downloading it and it's like some shit ass, you know, like rip from a vinyl record that sounds like crap. And you're like, can't believe, you know, I sat there and waited for the bar to move, you know, all the way to 100%, and then it ends up being some shit copy of it.
Angel says, does anybody remember Sony mini discs?
Yeah, that was the thing.
Yeah. Jeff, what was your first CD?
My first CD?
Yeah.
Past Masters Volume 2, the Beatles. Well, first album that I bought, I stole the White Album because I worked at Kmart back in the day. And I'm not proud of this, okay? But
you led right with it though.
I did. And it wasn't even for me. It was for a friend of mine who had a CD player. And I'm like, ooh, you know, whatever. I'm serious. I'm not kidding, because I know I like joke about shoplifting and stuff. And I'm not proud of it. But I did steal a copy of the White Album from Kmart back in 1988, maybe it was.
Brandon, what was your first CD?
My first CD, actually, I got two on the same day, and I still have those two copies to this day. And it was Madonna's Immaculate Collection and Green Day's Dookie.
Wow.
Those were my first two CDs.
Gary, what about you?
Ace Frehley's 1978 solo album.
Nice.
Oh. Did you get all the solo albums eventually, or just that one?
No, well, I mean, eventually I got Paul's and Gene's, but I never did get Peter's. I used to have those on record at one point, but but I remember I bought that CD the same day I bought a stereo that had a CD player in it. And I'm like, well, I don't have any CDs. So I remember thinking it was a big deal. What's the first one I'm going to get? And I saw that and I picked that up. So.
Well, the reason about
like
Peter's
one that
is he
started
did
out
the
cool.
definitive version of Tossing and Turning. He made that song his own. What
I used to
say,
have
Brandon?
8-track. So.
Oh, no, I was
Mine
going to say a smart aleck comment that Gary is like the only one that's going to start his CD collection off cool.
Yeah.
All of us like Green Day Dookie. It's like Ace Frehley solo.
Richard Marx. Yeah.
Mine was Doc and Beast from the East, and I got that one because it had the most songs. Like I probably wanted to buy like Back for the Attack or something, but it was, you know, it was close as I could get to a greatest hits, so that's why I picked that one.
And this is the thing about the CD era for me. I had like a stack, like huge stack of Beatles vinyl, and the CDs came out. I couldn't get in line in the record store fast enough to sell off all my Beatle records, so I could buy the Beatle catalog on CD.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I had Japanese bootlegs. I had like, you know, just stuff. Today it just hurts my head thinking about, because like to buy it back, you know, it would have cost me hundreds of dollars. But you know, like I was like screeching, you know, out of my driveway to like take those records and trade them in so I could buy the Beatles catalog on CD once I got that CD player. And I'm sure there's other people like that. You sold off their vinyl collection because they're like, well, who needs that shit anymore? Now we got, you know, and I remember the whole thing about CDs. Like they'll never skip. They're perfect. You can't break them. They're invincible. I mean, of course, you know, how quickly do we find out that's not true? You know, they're on the floor in the back seat of your Chevy Nova, you know, and it's like, oh yeah, how indestructible are they now?
And sometimes they sounded like shit. You know, they were great CDs, and there were CDs that sounded terrible. Like I remember that, you know.
Yeah, like those fucking MCA CDs with the back, they don't even have, like, they didn't even try to like replicate, you know, in an artful way, like the back of the record. You just got, like, I'll show you, hold on a second, I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. But, yeah, like this crap. Those MCA CDs with like the generic,
I can see it.
You know, back cover.
Yeah.
And like even on the inside of the CD, like you didn't even get liner notes. You just got, oh, here's a list of other CDs you might want to buy from MCA artists. It's like, come on, like you can't even, you know, like no liner notes, no credits, nothing like that. MCA, you know, and all the CDs, you know, the spines looked all the same.
You know, what's funny is I remember, you know, I was just completely into buying CDs, and this older guy was telling me, he says, well, those CDs are never going to sound as good as your older records. And I'm like, what are you talking about, man? These things last forever. They don't skip and everything. He goes, yeah, but he goes, they got to take that information and compress it. And he was, you know, going and all this kind of stuff that Josh tells us now. And he was telling me that stuff then, and I'm like, what are you talking about? The CDs are here to stay.
Now, were you guys big Columbia House guys?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
totally.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh. I don't know.
I feel like I'm you know, like, I don't know, somebody, like, I felt like I was like a member of the mafia because I had so many aliases. You know, you think I was a felon. I had so many aliases with BMG. You know, I had like Jeff S. Witcher, Jeffrey S. Witcher, Witcher with no H, J. S. Witcher. I had like, at one time, I had 10 different BMG memberships under different aliases. You know, I was getting like, it was ridiculous. Every day I was getting an introductory package in the mail, like each CD, you know, the whole thing. But that's like the allure. You know, you go through that catalog, like, all right, well.
Isn't that an amazing concept though? It's like
Yeah.
you send a freaking postcard to someone, they send you 10 albums, and you haven't paid a dime for anything.
I know.
It's like,
It's
gosh,
insane.
days.
Yeah, but it helped build the CD collection.
Well, my
Oh
what
yeah.
was funny was when I was a kid, my dad was in Columbia House, and that's how I got a lot of my 8-tracks when I was like, grade school and junior high, was because, and the thing is, he wasn't even a music guy. The only music he listened to was that, I don't know how you pronounce it. It's a F and a T, but these two guys, they did these elevator versions of popular songs. And that's all it was. It was just elevator music. That's what he would buy. He would play that stuff in his van, and just because he didn't really care about music. It was just kind of something in the background. He didn't really care. It was like the worst music. That's all he got. But, you know how that was. You buy one. Well, after a while, you get two free choices. Or if you don't send back the thing that month, then you are obligated to buy the choice of the month. So sometimes he'd forget that. I would get that. But like anytime he got free choices, he'd be like, go ahead, pick out a couple of 8-tracks or whatever. And I'm like, yes. And I go through that little book, and try to find stuff. I used to have Kiss Originals on 8-track, that 3-pack. And I had all kinds of things on 8-track. And then that was something, my old stereo had record, cassette, and 8-track. Well, as soon as I got that one with the CD, I took my entire 8-track collection, gave them away, gave my old stereo away to somebody. I'm like, here, I don't want any of these things now. You can have them. Of course, now I kind of wish I had those back, just sentimental value, if nothing else. But yeah, that's how I got a lot of my music.
And I love when they'd send you something that you forgot to send in the card, but you end up loving it, but you wouldn't have bought it anyways. Like this, they sent me the Stand By Me soundtrack, and my God, did I listen to that thing all the time. I loved it. It was like all songs from the 50s or whatever. But you'd look at my tape collection and it'd be like AC/DC, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Stand By Me. Like, just because they sent it to me, and I was like, I guess I'm going to keep it.
That shit never happened to me. I never would forget to send the card back or respond and get a CD that was like, oh, this is actually good. I'd always be like Michael W. Smith or, some shit like, Michael Bolton or that. It's like, God damn it, and then you're like, well, I guess I got to sell it, and I was such a degenerate music collector because I was like so broke, and I'd be like, all right, well, I want to go to the record store. Well, can't say record store, music store. So I need to find 5 CDs that I can sell that might actually, I can get something in trade. And that was like, my currency, because I just didn't have the, the revenue to be able to go in and, just like be buying records. So it'd be like, okay, which CDs got to go? Because if I want to buy something new, I always had to be like, all right, well, and that was the shitty thing about it was, okay, well, for one CD, it's going to cost me 5, CDs out of my collection. So which ones can I part? Okay, Big Brother and the Holding Company, I guess you're going to have to go. And, Miles Davis CD that I haven't listened to in a while, I guess I can get rid of that one, but
CDs are the best buy right now. I was at a flea market with Carter on Sunday, and this guy had a box of CDs, and the guy walks up to him, looks at the CDs and says, how many CDs you got in here? He goes, I have about 100. And he goes, I'll give you $50 for the box. The guy goes, okay. So he essentially got it for like 50 cents a CD. And people, obviously thrift stores are locally are about $1.99 for a CD for me. But if you go to yard sales, you go to flea markets, you can really scoop up CDs dirt cheap. And I think that one day there'll be a CD resurgence. I really do.
But have you ever been in the thrift store and be like, oh, yes, I've been looking for this CD, and you open it up and it's a completely different artist. It's like Travis Tritt or,
happened to me the other
Lori
day.
Morgan or some shit like that. You're like, oh, God damn it. I thought it was, Def Leppard Hysteria, and you open it up and it's like, oh, wah, wah.
The biggest
Ruben
heartbreak I ever
Studdard.
got
Shit.
was this.
Yeah, like whatever,
In the cassette
Smash
rack.
Mouth.
This is about 5 years ago. The cassette rack at Savers, they had 4 original Megaforce Metallica cassettes. And I see them, and it's Creeping Death, Jump in the Fire, Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning. Like, not on Elektra. My heart is racing. Like, I am so excited. And I take them out. Each one did not have the cassette. Yeah. It was just
That's the worst. Like teasing you deliberately.
Yeah. It was painful. I still have nightmares about that shit.
Talking about record clubs, the thing that sucked about the cassettes were, like, for Columbia House, they did not look like regular cassettes. They had, like, on the spine, they had that very generic looking, like the 2 pink lines and then the title of the band and the album. And then on the cover, it was just the album cover, and you had, like, it was cropped. And then you just had, like, the white border. That sucked. And I remember being in college and trying to swap out, like, thinking my roommates wouldn't notice, and, like, swapping out, like, my Columbia cassettes for their, like, legitimate, store-bought cassettes. And they're being like, what the fuck? You swapped out my, and I'm like, oh, I have no idea.
Witcher.
Yeah.
It makes me want to go check my cassettes. Well, Jeff, did you do any swapping when you were in my house?
Well, if you haven't noticed now, I guess it's pretty safe.
Exactly. What happened to my Tears for Fears cassette?
Prime Analog Record says, yeah, I remember you would tape a penny onto a postcard and they would send you 10 albums.
Yeah. Oh my God. Crazy.
What's a penny?
Deep Track Zach knew of that artist I was talking about that my dad would listen to. It's Ferrante and Taysher.
Wow.
Now you can find their stuff, Jeff, if you like, you and I have the same kind of thrift stores. Occasionally you'll see their albums in there.
Okay.
So make sure you don't pick that up.
Can't be very good then. Yeah.
Make sure you avoid that one.
Well, that's, Gary and I are always laughing about that, although Gary seems to have had some more recent luck with his
I have had a few
recent. It's like, any thrift stores here in Michigan, you walk in, it's like the records, they're on the floor, they're stacked up, they got dust and urine and water damage, and, they smell
blood,
moldy.
semen. It's horrible.
Yeah, and it's like you don't even want to touch them. They're all, Mitch Miller records, or, just the worst of the worst soundtracks from Oklahoma, or, these, like, just cheesy musicals, or there's nothing to be found. And I tried. I really, like, I'm going to give thrift stores a chance, and there's nothing but garbage there. And Josh, you go into Massachusetts, and it seems like it's a different culture.
He goes,
altogether.
hey, look, I got the first 2 Ozzy albums for $4.
Hey, well, here's the deal. I did a video about 2 years ago with this. Here's my tips for thrifting. 1, get to know the staff. Be friendly with the staff, and, like, ask them. Say, hey, do you get records often? When do you put them out? Like, and then you have that information. Oh, we normally put those out on Wednesday morning. What time do you normally put them out? Okay, well, I'll make sure I come by. And then you go. The other thing is you got to go often. So I know that Savers locally, they put out records right at the beginning of the day. If they're going to put out records, that's when they put out media. And they generally put it out there Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, occasionally Friday, and occasionally Saturday. So I will try to go every single day as soon as they open at 10 a.m. as long as I don't have a meeting at work. Luckily, I can work from home and I can take my break at that point. So yeah, and then so 9 out of 10 times I'm not going to find anything, but it's that 10th time This week I only found a cassette. I only found Deep Purple, Perfect Strangers. But last week I found all those, rare records from the 60s. The week before I found those rare records from the 80s. And it's just persistence. But I used to do that for a living. You know what I mean? I used to not sell records, but sell vintage clothing. So I got used to talking to the people, asking them when they were going to put out clothing. And it's just being friendly. That's my advice. And, I've had instances in the past where people would text me, hey, you get to know the people at Savers or a thrift store. You say, hey, text me if you ever get anything. And they text you like, hey, just, we get a boatload of records. We're going to put them out later today. Awesome. I'll be there. Call in sick to work. That's what I recommend, guys.
The thrift store workers kind of like carnies.
To a certain extent, they can be.
That's what it feels like around here anyway. It's like the guy who operates the Tilt-A-Whirl ride at the carnival, Oh, I don't know. Yeah, well, you ever get any records? You can, let me know. And what? Like it's never gonna happen. Like it never, and it must be a regional kind of thing because I guarantee I am never walking in any of these shit stores around here and finding the stuff that you find, Josh. It's just not gonna happen. It's all like, yeah, polyester pants. Yeah, we got racks and racks of polyester pants, but all our records are on the floor behind the radiator, and they got mold and dust and mouse shit all over them.
Pants.
Or what's great is you will go through 30 records that are tight. They're so crammed together.
Yeah.
They're so tight. You can barely move them to see what the next one is. And you will find one record that you're like, well, hey, you want to buy it just because you want to get something. You'll pick it up and you go, wow, that's not bad. And then you take the record out and it's like somebody took sandpaper and just went all over it. They are, I have records from my, a few left over from my youth that, obviously don't look the best. But man, those records there at those Goodwill stores, it's like, I don't even understand what they do to them. How they get in that bad of shape. They are just, they had to have them out, playing with them, throwing them, rubbing them on the floor. I don't know. They're just.
Did you store these in your crawl space? How the hell did they get in there?
Exactly.
I mean, you could actually take a record outside right now and spend the next 20 minutes trying to destroy it, and it's still as bad as some of those things that come from the Goodwills.
Yes, it's amazing.
What about yard sales? Do you guys have like yard sales in your area, garage sales, things like that, where people sell?
When the weather gets warmer, we do. I have some, but I'll be honest, I'm always kind of lazy stopping there because it just seems like anytime I do stop at a yard sale, I just feel so awkward because, I walk in there and I look around, there's nothing I want. And then I feel bad, I'm like, because there's the people sitting there and you're like, yeah, there's nothing of this stuff you're selling that I want. And so like a lot of times I don't want that feeling. So I don't even stop, but I know I should because there might be somebody selling records.
Well,
Gary gets guilted into, okay, I'll take this onesie for 10 cents.
Yes, exactly.
It says I listen to ABBA with my daddy. What's fun though? I know. When Jeff was down, I was kind of showing him how I get extra income to buy records because I like everybody, like I'm on a budget, and I showed him these 2 teddy bears that I had bought at Savers for $8 and I sold it for $50. And a lot of times when I go to yard sale, I go to Savers, I look for things that I can flip to pay for my vinyl record addiction. So to give you an example, I went to a yard sale last weekend. I bought 2 VHSs that were sealed because sealed VHS is a hot commodity right now. It's not crazy like what you see online where this movie sold for $20,000, right, or something like that. I know that does happen, but I bought 2 sealed VHSs. They were 50 cents each, so I spent $1. I sold them for $20 each. So there's $40. So the way I look at it is I took $1 to turn it to 40 to go buy myself a couple records from Purchase Street Records. So when I do go to yard sales, I go to thrift stores, it's not always just for records and cassettes. It's to find other things that I can easily flip for profit. And when I do that, when I say easy, it's the size of the item, because the bigger the item, the more it's going to be to ship, the harder it is to ship. You have to charge more for shipping. So something like a VHS, you can send media mail. It's super cheap to ship. You could probably ship for $2. So it's like, I found the sealed VHS, put it up for $20. It got a bid. It sold. I drove $5 shipping, cost me $3 to ship, maybe a couple dollars for a box. You know, that's one way that I pay for my vinyl records. You know, it was a lot easier before we bought this house. I'll be completely honest with everybody. You know, when I was renting, it was a hell of a lot cheaper, and I had a lot more money. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, I still need to feed the addiction. I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah, there's a record store. As you know, I am a big shot author, and so what I would do is whatever, not really, but no, like I would this record store, I got into this consignment deal with this record store by me, and I gave them like a stack because I wrote this book. It was called, you know, there's a Charlie Brown series like Snoopy Come Home. Well, I did a parody of it. It's called Snoop Come Home. Like it was the Peanuts characters, but it was Snoop Dogg instead of, you know, Snoopy, the character. So I like put, you know, Snoop Doggy Dog. It's available on Amazon, by the way. But I did like these drawings, and I put like Snoop Dogg, the rapper, where, you know, Snoopy would have been, and like he's smoking joints and shit like that. And, you know, so anyway, I gave like a stack of those books to the record store where I was at. And then like any records that they sold, it would immediately go to, you know, store credit for me. So like I would walk in and they'd be like, oh, okay, well, we sold 8 books. Now you have $60 in store credits. It's like, oh, well, cha-ching, you know, that's cool. So yeah, if you've got a relationship with, you know, your local record store and, you know, like, or whatever, like Josh has his, you know, VHS, you know, selling business. I mean, there's ways to, you know, figure out a way to, you know, be able to afford or feed your vinyl addiction that, you know, can be a little easier on your pocketbook, I guess, as it were. But
this is one really cool thing that I've started to do over, I mean, it's been a little while now. I haven't even spoken about it yet in the VC, but I mean, I used to do what you talked about, JC, about, you know, 10 years ago when I used to go to flea markets. I would, you know, stuff I find could flip and that type of thing. And then, of course, working at the record stores, you know, all the stores or the 2 stores I've worked at for the past 3 years has been strictly for store credit. But just as much as I like music and all the things that we always talked about, I actually started this thing in conjunction with a lady who has a business where people, I mean, there's been a few, hired me to curate vinyl collections for them.
Wow.
So, and that's been a really, really cool thing, because what happens is, like, we charge them a set fee to put together a collection, and then they just give you that chunk of money and you go buy the collection, or, you know, build the collection, and kind of what's left over is your profit. I mean, so sometimes there's even an hourly charge for your work and stuff like that. But that's actually been going pretty, I mean, it hasn't exploded yet, but it's definitely something I'm thinking about doing in the process of actually potentially starting a business of doing that. And that's actually been something that's been really, really cool.
Wow. That's fantastic, dude.
Yeah.
Who better than you? Your music taste is so eclectic. You know, it's awesome.
Yeah, and just going out to stores and spending other people's money is just,
I love it.
And it's really cool too, like, because you go into these independent stores, like, you know, I've traveled all over the Midwest going to different stores to, you know, build different collections or whatever. And it's like you can walk into this shop that gets a little bit of foot traffic or whatever else, and all of a sudden you're like, here's a $900 sale, you know, here's a $1,100 sale, and it's just, they're happy as heck, and, you know, they're giving you discounts and everything, and you get to buy vinyl, and of course I throw in a couple pieces for me, and you know, it's been a really, really cool gig. So I hope it really turns into the bigger thing I'm trying to take it to.
That's awesome. I was wondering, that made me kind of think of something. So like with your channel, because I know, you know, Josh's channel is really blowing up, and he's got this a few times. With your channel, as big as it is, do you get people like wanting to send you products, albums, things like that for free, like to talk about them on your channel?
I've never gotten a single one.
Really?
Yeah, never gotten a single one. And
Yeah.
I think maybe because my channel is not as polished, you know. I think I just kind of hit record and start talking. I think when it comes to stuff like that, like, you know, like JC, like his channel is a perfect example. He has kind of a regular thing that he does, and he's like probably the best in the VC at it, and it's just
Oh,
Very nice, dude.
I was
wow.
like, what the hell happened to my computer? And all of a
I
sudden,
know.
Yeah.
Anyway,
But go ahead.
I think if I got to the point where I was doing something more of like a regular series and had more of a, you know, again, just kind of a little more polished. I just feel like I just kind of ramble, and maybe that's not as attractive, but I'm probably one of the few people you guys will meet that has never had a Facebook page and never done a Facebook post. I've never had Instagram, never done an Instagram post, but all that stuff is, I guess, kind of about to change with me kind of going into this new endeavor. So,
Well, that's really impressive that you have the amount of subscribers that you have, really, when you don't, you know, you haven't even used these other outlets. And like you said, you are, you know, that's kind of what your channel is. You know, you just kind of get on there and talk, which is great. I mean, I love that kind of thing.
I love the channel.
Yeah, that's really, that just, a lot of that, you know, so in that case, a lot of it has to do with your personality. You know what I mean?
Right.
If you have that many subscribers and you don't really have a set format kind of thing, it's just, well, people want to tune in to see you, you know, to hear what you've got to say. So
yeah.
you should feel happy about that.
Yeah. Jeff's sharing something. Oh, here we go.
Oh, why do you have to use such coarse language?
I love it.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because that company is sending me a whole bunch of products, and so I won't get into it now, but you know, at first it sounded like they wanted me to do like an infomercial, and then I was like, well, I'll review the products, but I'm not gonna, like, you know, just do like some sort of crazy commercial, you know. But we'll get into that when I actually see what they send me. But yeah, I don't know. You know, it's funny that you know, I love all your channels. I think all your channels are so much better than mine. I think, you know, my coming soon certainly helps me with the subscriber count and maybe companies reaching out to me. Because I've had like 3 or 4 different companies reach out to me. But a lot of times it just seems so weird. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole and get stuck, you know?
Yeah.
yeah.
Like I said, of our channels, I would almost assume, Jason, that you would be the best one, because like even with your coming soons, I mean, you know how many albums I've bought just from watching your coming soons, you know? So it's like what you do, it attracts people and it sells, you know, because you do a fantastic job of that. Sometimes
Thanks.
I'm like, God dang it, here goes.
Yeah.
What am I going to put in my want list now?
Well, you know, I do realize that, like, I think that I started the coming soon because a lot of people don't have the time to research. And I go to like 4 or 5 different websites to try to figure out what's coming out. Sometimes record companies, you know, will give me a heads up or something along that lines, like if it's someone I'm in communication with. But, you know, it certainly helps. And I feel like, you know, and I've said this a million times, so I apologize to everyone that's heard it. But when I started this channel, it really was to meet friends because I was super lonely. The pandemic had just really, I was so depressed. I was so depressed. And then once I met Jeff and Chris and Aaron and Gary, I was like, well, fuck this. I can quit. That's what I thought. You know what I mean? Like, I can quit because I have friends that I can talk to music about. We're texting every day. And now, Brandon, I've got you. So like there was a huge part of me that was like, I could just quit because now I've got my friends. But what I didn't realize was all these other people that I was communicating with every day, like to a lot of these people, I feel like I'm that person. I'm their friend. And I feel like they're my friends too, even though they don't make videos. So there is sometimes I do feel like, oof, I could never quit now. You know what I mean? Like this would be really difficult, but I don't know. It's an interesting thing starting a vinyl community. I think I encourage everyone to do it. Because Brandon, well, your channel was one of the first ones I ever saw, and it was like a flip video you did for your metal collection or hair metal collection or something. And I remember subscribing and being like, oh, this is cool. It was you, Melinda, Frank. You know, obviously Frank is the easiest to find when you type in vinyl community. But I didn't know, you know, I learned, you know, I think that I became friends with Aaron first and then Chris, and then through their videos I met, you know, Gary and Jeff, and man, it was such a blessing. I met these guys and met yourself. Yeah, you guys were a lifesaver. I was going nuts. You would see me during the pandemic with me and my record collection, just staring at it like.
Yeah. Yeah, the vinyl community really did change things, you know, and that, I did at the same time, you know, that's when I started, was during the pandemic, and I was just kind of getting back into records, you know, listening to them more. And, you know, I was started watching on YouTube, just people who talked about music and stuff. And then at some point I found, well, the Vinyl Archivist and Melinda Murphy are the first people that I saw that talked about records, about vinyl, and like, you know, really getting into it. And I'm like, and I'm sitting there watching it, you know, and they're taking the record out, they're showing the label, and Patrick is saying, well, this is a whatever pressing. And I'm like, what? How's he know that? You know, I mean, and he's going on about it. And I'm like sitting and I realized, so I started watching like a bunch of his videos in a row. And I'm like, this is really cool. And I thought, well, I don't know as much about records as like these guys. But, you know, then I started seeing some others. And so I started my own channel basically just so I could talk about music, because I didn't have any friends out here that would talk music with me to this degree. You know, you might have one or two that like music, but maybe they were friends you had back in the day. Now you don't see them. And so to be able to do this, and, you know, I can remember like all of a sudden getting a few comments on a video. Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, somebody watched one of my videos. I can't believe it. And then at some point, I hadn't been, I don't know, I've been on for a little while, and Josh found me, or I found his channel first, I think, and I started commenting, and he watched one or two of my videos, and he actually commented on it, and then he mentioned me on his channel. And I remember I brought my wife in, and I go, come here, watch this. I go, this guy has got, I can't remember how many subscribers he had at the time. I go, listen. And I rewound it, and, you know, he said something about me and my channel, and I'm like, and she's like, wow. You know, it's like this big deal, you know, that Josh had mentioned me. I thought that was like the coolest thing. I thought, man, I have made it now. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, each of us have had that
I made
moment
my
where
first
you think, oh no.
Yeah, it was a big deal. I remember that.
Yeah, well, I remember I used to watch Chris's channel like for a while before. I mean, my channel was getting like 8 views a video, you know, the first couple ones I did. And then there was some thread or something, and it was, you know, Chris nominated me to do, you know, whatever thread that was. I don't even remember. And I remember totally stop the press. And I brought my wife into the room too. Like, look, you know, and I you know, be like, wow, he said my name on his video. Like, holy crap. It was like winning the lottery or something like that. It's like, it was so amazing.
I did my first video back in 2008. Right.
Wow.
And the only reason I did it was because I'd really gotten into vinyl over that previous year and a half. I mean, I was probably going out and digging and buying more than I do now back then. Like the bug just really, really grabbed me. And so I decided to go to YouTube and say, oh, are there other people out there? I want to, you know, feeling lonely in the collecting and the listening. And there was nobody doing any videos whatsoever. So finally I thought, well, maybe if I want to see someone's videos, I need to do one myself. So I made like my first video, and it was like nobody. Like, you know, it's like no views, maybe 3 or 4. But I was like, screw it, I don't care. So I kept making videos. And it was somewhere around like maybe my 8th or 9th video when there was some guy who didn't make videos, never made videos. His name was What's Up Hamadi was his username. And he asked me a question where he said, what are the 5 most influential albums for you that really kind of spawned all of your musical taste today? And I spent like 4 days just pondering, trying to break down.
Yeah.
And I finally came up with the 5. And I did a video. And again, it was maybe him and I guess 3 other people that were watching because I only had like 3 or 4 views on my previous videos. But I did that response, and a guy named Dan in Canada, who used to be a huge guy in the VC, just incredible musical knowledge. He saw it and thought it was the funniest things. I mentioned Kenny G as one of the albums in there. So he did a response to it. And next thing you know, it's like, that's where the vinyl community spawned from, was
Wow.
us 3 going back and forth. And then LJ came, and then, you know, Dimebag came. It's like a bunch of different people. And all of a sudden it was just like, oh my gosh, like you said, I have friends. It's like, I know people that get this. And it was just freaking magical.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest takeaway, I think, from any of us is all the relationships that we've made and the friendships that we've made. I mean, it's not just, oh, I've got 500 subs now, or I've got ever many subs. I mean, it's more, you know, I've got friends in Canada, I've got friends in Australia, I've got friends in Scotland, I've got friends all over. You know, it's not like, oh, I've got 1,400, whatever, you know, your sub count is. I mean, that's great too. But, you know, it's more, you know, I mean, because when I started my channel, it was like right when the pandemic hit. And I was at home every single day and had nothing to do and was bored. You couldn't go to any stores. Record stores were all shut down. And so I had seen some people, you know, do the channels like this or do videos where they show their record collection. And it's like, well, I think I could do that, you know. And I saw, like, there was a guy, you know, who I still watch, Tim Derling from Canada. Was one of the first channels I watched. Chris Brophy's channel was one that I subscribed to very early on. And I'm like, well, I'm never going to be Chris. I'm never going to be, you know, able to be that comfortable in front of the camera. But, you know, some of my earliest videos are like so embarrassing because I'm so like, I hadn't gotten the idea of like trying to like talk to just my phone, you know, like there was an audience out there. And, you know, 3 people, you had 5 people watch your video and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe there's that many people that want to watch me talk about, you know, my record collection or whatever. And, you know, but then it's like, you know, like I said, when Chris mentioned me in his video, and then you know, but it's all, I mean, you really have to start commenting on people's videos. You have to start, you know, entering contests. You have to, you know, really engage with other people. It's not just going to happen. You can't just put videos up and people are going to love you. I mean, it's a reciprocal kind of thing. And it was like a long while before I ever felt like, okay, well, I feel like I'm getting some kind of return on the investment that I'm making by doing these videos. And, you know, I remember, Josh, you were, you know, like I was really about ready to like, you know what, like this has been fun, but nobody's watching. You know, I feel like I'm just kind of like talking to 3 people on the internet. So, you know, and I wasn't bitter about it. It was just like, well, this isn't for me, I guess. And I was about ready to fold it in. And, you know, then I'd get like 8 comments on one video from Josh, you know, I'm like, oh, well, this guy likes it. So, you know, I guess maybe there's something there, you know. And I remember Gary watching one of your videos and you had, you know, a Great Lakes brew, like, you know, a beer from Great Lakes. I'm like, I know that brewery. I've been there before, you know. And I mean, it wasn't like, I mean, you know, you were talking about cool stuff on your video, but it was like, well, shit, like, you know, yeah, like we all like records, but I like beer too. And, you know, I know exactly, like, he's got to be very close to where I live. And, you know, then we kind of developed that connection. And, but you have to put yourself out there, and, you know, it's not easy because there's going to be people that, you know, leave shitty comments on your videos, and people who don't get what you do, and people who want to troll you. And, some people just can't take that. You got to have somewhat of a thick skin, because the more subscribers you get, the more you're kind of getting, you're casting a wider net of people who are watching it. And, a lot of the comments are great, but, every so often you get one that really like, ooh, that hurt. Ouch. Ouch.
Yeah, I get some crappy comments. Those people suck. I'm just gonna let you know. But you know what? It's funny you mentioned that, Jeff, because there's two things I'd love to mention. One, it's not just meeting people and connecting. Like, me and my girlfriend, I don't want to make it sound like she doesn't love music. She loves music, and there's some music that we really connect with, like a band like New Edition. Like, we both love New Edition, so we can talk about Candy Girl and get all excited. But then if I talk about lyrics, like, Gary made this amazing video talking about Billy Joel and talking about Goodnight Saigon, and I was so juiced up at the end of that video that I watched it again. And I'm like, and I was commenting like crazy, and Gary probably remembers, I probably left like 15 comments. I was so excited because I'm like, this guy gets it. He gets me. He understands. This is how I feel about this. And I can't have that conversation with Michelle. And that's the beautiful thing about the vinyl community, is that you can meet people that maybe just be one album, but you can resonate with you and connect with them. The other thing you mentioned, Jeff, was the contest. I know a lot of people don't like to have contests, or they don't like to enter contests, but if you're new to the vinyl community, here's the thing. I think everybody should be doing other people's contests, because I kind of feel like, let's help each other out. I think Melinda Murphy and Frank should do contests. I know their channels are so big, but let's all support each other. Let's all do this. I think every single person, if you have the ability, try to do the contest. Now, we can't do all contests because that's physically impossible. But, once a month, do somebody's contest. And I do feel like that really is going to support and grow the community. It's just like Jeff said when, or Gary said when I gave him a shout out, like, I love giving shout outs. I love trying to help people out. I think it's a real small thing you can do. And if you don't want the prize, just tell them to give the prize to somebody else. But the exposure might help, because there's probably someone that watches your channel. Even if you have 200 subs, there's someone that watches your channel that may not watch someone else's channel, even though they have more subs, right? It's just that they landed on your channel. And that's one way we can grow the community and get everybody together.
That seems to be the general theme of a lot of the comments.
What did you say, Brandon?
Oh, I was just going to say really quick, that's like one of the things that I always find so odd about people that are somewhat anti-contest. Like, and again, I'm not telling you to do contests, because again, you do what makes you feel comfortable. But it's like, really, someone is asking you to talk about music, and you're like, nah, I'm good. I don't want to do that. It's just one more opportunity to talk about what you love. And the key behind all that is kind of what Jeff was saying a minute ago, is that you just have to put yourself out there. I've had so many people that have emailed me before talking about, I've watched your channel for so long, I've never made videos, thinking about doing it, but I don't really have a big collection, or I don't feel like I know as much. And I tell them all the exact same thing every time. It's like, it's not about your collection. It's not about how great you talk. It's just about you putting your love of music out there. Like, that's all it takes to jump in on this thing.
Yeah. A lot of the comments we're getting are kind of supporting the whole idea that, I think we all have similar experiences where, I can't really talk. I can talk to my wife about music, but I'm always going to be, the one leading that conversation. And I don't have people at work that I can talk about music. I don't have friends. We can talk about sports, we can talk about politics, but, with music, there's just not, we're not on a level playing field. And I think that's what's great about YouTube is, you can have people across the globe who share that passion that you have, that you can, sort of geek out with, as it were. And like, oh, what do you have in your collection? Oh, that's different. I have different pressings, or, oh, I need that record. Or, it's just people that, the friends I always wish I had, because it's like, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one who has, 1,000 records and a ridiculous amount of cassettes and CDs, because at some point you kind of feel like, God, You know, do I have a problem? You know, do I need to seek help because I've got all this, you know, all these CDs, all these records. And then you realize, yeah, there's a whole shitload of people out there that are the same as you that love going to record stores. And when they're not going to record stores, they're thinking about, well, when is the next time I get to go to a record store, or they're shopping online, or, you know, I mean, you just get so excited about, oh, you found your grail. That's awesome. You know, whereas, you know, I'm sure, you know, any of us tell our wives, I found this grail, you won't believe it. It's like, yeah, they're happy for you, but they don't understand
Yeah.
the way, you know, Gary would understand, or the way Brandon or Josh would understand. It's sort of like, yeah, you guys get it because you totally, you know, we're all of the same, you know, mind in that regard.
Brandon would say, yeah, I've got 3 copies of that back here.
One is sealed.
Yeah, one is sealed.
Open.
Yeah, Josh would say, oh, I saw 5 copies of that at Savers last week. I didn't know you needed that.
Oh,
But
yeah.
you-
I tell you what, now I almost feel bad now. Like, cause I try not to talk about grails because it's like Josh will all of a sudden send it to me, or Aaron, you know, and I'm like, then I feel like, was I begging for that record?
No.
Did it sound like I was begging them? You know, I'll sometimes go back and watch like what I said, because it's like all of a sudden, you know, here I get this in the mail from Josh. Hey, I found that. I found that thing you said was an impossible grail to find. You know, and
Well,
I'm like,
the thing is that, like, you know, we all, I mean, I care for you guys, all of you, plus Aaron and you know, Chris. I know they're not here, and many others during the VC that I can't name them all. But, you know, if Brandon said tomorrow, like, oh my God, my number one grail, I know that Aaron, it's you Van Halen, right? For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge or something like that, Brandon, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So, like, me and Aaron are the same way. Like, if we stumble across it and someone says this is our number one grail, as long as it's not going to, you know, bankrupt my family, I'm going to try to get it for you guys. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean,
because I think
that's
that,
great. I guess I just feel kind of bad because I don't know. I just feel like I have a harder time being able to do that. I would love to be able to,
yeah.
you know, find, this is something, you know, I mean, I bought you guys records. Sometimes it's hit and miss. I can tell sometimes you like them. Sometimes you're like, you know, and it's like, you know, it's like, well, I would really love to get one of these guys something that, holy shit, I really, really wanted this record, you know, but.
Well, what I
It
really
shows
want,
you're a good guy, Gary. I mean, it just shows you're not selfish.
Yeah,
but
Gary, you're the
actually
man.
thinking about other people. I mean, that's all that says, which is awesome.
and Gary, I love every record you sent me, by the way. And I was listening to that Edge of 17 by Lilith Cesar, whatever her name was today. Not a fact. But what I would love is for you to visit and bring your wife, because Michelle needs female companionship. She was looking at Gary and I mean, looking at Chris and Jeff, like, you couldn't bring your wife or girl. Like, she was grilling Chris. Like, don't you have a girlfriend or someone you could bring?
Well, I will say, going by what you said, and with my wife, they could both drink a couple beers together.
All right, sounds good. Bring them.
And I'm going to extend the same offer to you guys too. At some point in time in the future, if you guys can make it to the St. Louis area,
Love to.
Oh, I'm going to come live in your room. That's what I'm going to do.
Yes.
I'm telling you, we just bought this house. We got like three spare bedrooms, so like there's plenty of room, the whole 9. So it'd just be a matter of getting here and hanging out. That would be awesome. So
I would
keep
love
that
it.
in mind. Let's think about that at some point in the future. Would love to have you.
That would be something.
So we do have some comments, guys, since we
Yeah.
haven't read them in a while. So Flat Round and Spun says, I just wish I had more ideas for my channel. I also hate stealing other people's ideas for subject matter, which I know is sometimes a pet peeve of some of us.
Well, and I think it's okay to do that as long as you credit the person who originally
Yeah.
had the idea. I mean, I think there's no harm in saying, you know, oh, hey, you know, I saw this video by Brandon and he had a great idea. I'm kind of jumping on that thread and here's my take on that. You know, I think it's when you pull, you know, you try to pull it off like, oh, this was an original idea I had and I'm going to run with it. I think always it's a form of plagiarism. I think if somebody's got a great idea for a video and then you do the same video and you act like, oh, this is just something I came up with. So I think there's no harm in that, but just at least give credit, credit whoever video you saw that inspired you to do a similar thing.
Yeah, make it right.
Who doesn't want to hear that? I mean, you turn on someone's video and like, hey, you inspired me to make this. I thought your video was awesome, so I wanted to do it too. Like that's a great thing to put out there.
I agree.
I like another comment here. This is really good. Calvin Wazoo. He said VCLT is exactly what it is. It's a love train. He says, so I might get some VCLT from one person and not send them anything, but I will send something to someone else. It's an open loop, not a closed loop. That's kind of a cool way to.
I
like the idea of paying it forward also. Sort of like, I mean, we do it not because we expect anything back. It's like, okay, well, I'm sending you something, so you better send me something back. I think it's, oh, this person really loves this artist, or they've been looking for this record, and you surprise them that way. And I think we always go back to Aaron, because Aaron is the, I mean, I don't know that there's anyone better than Aaron at knowing what you want and nailing every single VCLT that he sends. I don't think I've ever gotten a single, and Aaron sent me got to be like at least 50 albums, just in the time that I've known him. But, it's not about, hey, I'll send you something you send. It's just like that whole, like, I love that you like records and collecting as much as I do. Here's something that, I think is going to make your day. And that's what, I get as much thrill of, knowing somebody is going to appreciate a record,
right?
Than like me buying a record for myself, because it's just watching somebody's like their eyes light up and like, oh my God, I can't believe, you got me this. I mean, it's just such a cool way to,
One of my favorite videos as far as a video that I've watched at least 20 or 25 times, is when a guy named LJ, a bio site, used to be in the vinyl community. And we decided to get together and get a birthday present from him. Actually, it wasn't even a birthday present. It was just a thank you for being such a big kind of figure in the vinyl community. And there was like 20 of us that chipped in and bought him an original copy of Counterparts by Rush. And the only thing I asked him to do was just to open it on camera. And when you just see his reaction to it and his like, oh my gosh, that video has given me so much joy over the years that I've watched it repeatedly all the time, just to see someone that I call a friend be that happy by an album that he got. And it was just 20 people chipping in $10 a piece. That's all it was.
Well, I think it's another cool way to get people into music that you're excited about. Like you send people an album that really means something to you, and you're hoping that it will resonate with them as well. Like sending them a record like, this is such a cool record, you need this as part of your collection, I'm going to send it to you. And I think that's what happens, more than, oh, I found your grail, I'm sending it to you. I think a lot of times it's like, I love this record, I know Josh, I know what he likes, and I know he's going to dig this record, or I know Gary's, like whatever it is. I mean, I think it's rare that you have somebody like Aaron who just intuitively like finds stuff that is so meaningful to you, and gaps you didn't even realize were in your collection, and he sends it to you. And he's just I don't know how he does it. I mean, he's amazing at it.
He's got a heck of a memory or something, because he remembers some of the stuff, and I don't know. I mean, he has sent me some packages that, I'll be honest with you, when I'm opening them up, I get choked up to an extent, a little bit, because I'm like, holy crap, I cannot believe, he got this for me. He found this. He remembered that I talked about it. I mean, I remember he sent me a record of Sun House, and I'm like, I cannot believe, he remembered me talking about Sun House and how I couldn't find anything by him at that time on vinyl. And, I don't know, just I mean, I've gotten the same thing really from you, Josh, on some of the, you've sent me some records that like have really meant a lot to me. And I also really enjoy seeing Aaron send packages to other people. I mean, I really love watching those videos almost as much as I do getting the stuff myself. I love watching those people get that stuff from Aaron, knowing, I've gotten one of those packages before. I know how they feel opening this stuff up. They're like, holy cow, and it's, God, it's just, they're fun to watch. I like watching VCLT videos of other people getting stuff,
Me too.
Did you guys follow Steve Carlson when he kind of went through all of his stuff with losing his collection?
Yeah.
I mean, that was another one of those things that was just kind of, VCLT on an entirely different level.
Right.
Stepping up for him. And it was, I mean, not to mention just the attitude that he kept through the whole thing. I mean, he was the same positive, awesome guy that he always was. He just lost his entire collection. But when he just kept showing the stuff that people in the VC were sending to him, I was like, oh my God, these freaking people are awesome.
Yeah. The vinyl community is so awesome. And, it's funny because, for me, given VCLT, I remember, Jeff, I sent you that Lord Huron album, and you opened the VCLT, and then a couple of days later, you made another video to talk about how much you loved the album. And you said something to the line of like, I can't believe I've lived without this, or something along that lines. And I was like, it made me feel so good that I'd introduce you to a new band that you loved so much. And you had discovered them in just a matter of days. You could tell you loved it. Cool. And the other thing about Aaron is Aaron's channel is so fantastic. I don't understand why he doesn't have 10,000 subs. Like Tipsy Tuesday is such a blast. He's having so much fun. And he's singing and he's showing albums. And even if you don't like hard rock or heavy metal, if you can't have a good time watching Aaron get tipsy and rock out to music, I mean, to me, it's like, I can't wait. It's like must-see television. Like, I will shut off the game. Like, the Celtics are in the playoffs. I'm like, I got to shut this off because I need to watch Aaron. It's just, to me, it's just the best. So everybody,
the thing that's cool about that is, for me, and maybe it's the same with you guys, anytime like I get invited to a party or I go to someone's house, I'd be kind of looking around like, oh, do they have a CD collection? Do they have a vinyl collection? And then I kind of like, if I saw that they did, I'd be like, make a beeline over there and like, I wonder what they listen to, I mean, usually I'd go for their wife's underwear drawer first and then no, I'm just kidding.
What exactly turning off to?
But like seriously, but I'm the same way. I'd like, I'd get into somebody's car, be going somewhere, and it's like, oh, what CDs do they have? What are their interests? I'm always like interested in like, it's really like finding out what makes somebody tick. Like, what music do they like? Oh, they're a heavy metal guy. Oh, they're jazz. Oh, they like new wave. Oh, they like singer-songwriter stuff. But I'm always interested, and that's what I love. Like anytime somebody shows a video of like, this is stuff that I picked up, or Aaron's Tipsy Tuesday, like I just love seeing what people have in their collection and what they're passionate about. And, like people like Chris Prophy, who, he's got like some death metal, like really hardcore shit in his collection. But then he's also, he's got Anne Murray and he's got the Judds and he's got other, like stuff like, I can't wrap my head around the fact that, this guy listens to Death Angel. And at the same time, he's also got, Frank Sinatra, and he's got Rod McEwen, and he's got Anne Murray, and he's got shit like, musicals in his collection. But, I mean, that's the beauty of it. Like, you just never know.
Brandon? So what Music in the House said, if you dug into collecting in the early 2000s, you must have gotten some sweet, sweet deals back in the day.
Oh, heck yes. I mean, a good majority of anything I consider grails and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I've gotten stuff in the past few years, sure, but there are so many things in my collection that are $90, $100 records, those type of things. I paid $2 or $3 for. I mean, it was just an absolute grand time. I remember back then, like going into a record store, and I remember finding a New Order Substance, the 2 LP on vinyl, and it was $14.99. And I was like, that's a lot for a record. I don't know if I'm going to dump that on a record.
Yeah.
Like I had to actually think about it, and I put it back on the shelf, and I walked around a bit and ended up grabbing it. But that's just kind of where things were. If you walk into a store with $40, I expected to come out with 25, 30 records. And the same Huey Lewis and the News Sports in near mint condition that costs $15 today, that was regularly a $1.99 record across the board. So I feel very fortunate I got in when I did, long before the resurgence hit. I mean, I was probably 2,500, 3,000 records before the resurgence even was thought about.
Yeah, before I sold my collection, which I sold my collection a couple years before the pandemic, I was collecting since 1984, heavy in the 90s, in the 2000s. I remember getting Dr. Dre The Chronic for $16, OG pressing. Like that's like probably like a $400 record now or something. $16, guys. Yep.
Wow. You know, how Jeff and I always complain about our Goodwill stores and stuff and the records. Now, I do remember going, 10 years ago or whatever, going into Goodwills, because my wife would sometimes get work clothes there or something. I would actually see records there at that time. I mean, I still remember I had Blizzard of Oz record and a couple other records in my hand like that. 80s rock, which we know is hard to find. And I thought, I remember thinking, well, maybe I should just buy these for the cover, so I could frame them or something. And I put them back, and I'm like, you could actually find that stuff there because nobody hardly cared about it at that point. And now, I mean, if I found a record like that in a Goodwill now, I'd be going like this and grabbing it and thinking, how'd this get here?
Yeah, exactly.
I found the first 5 Testament albums on cassette at a Goodwill for 25 cents a piece.
That's awesome.
Like back in those days.
Yep.
That Chris Isaac you were talking about, $7.
Yeah, Heart Shaped World used to be a much cheaper record. Yep. That's
so what's the most valuable record in your collection that you got for like bargain basement price?
That's a good that I currently have now or back in the day before I sold my collection.
Either way.
So I had the Led Zeppelin 2 Ludwig press that was 50 cents back in the day, but I sold that. That was a Salvation Army find when their records were 50 cents. But currently, the cheapest that's worth the most, I'm trying to think. I mean, that Marty Robbins that I have is at least $100 record, right? That thing is mint, Columbia 6i. Like, it looks like it's never been played. The jacket is the most mint I've ever seen, a Columbia 6i. So that's got to be one of them. I'm trying to think what else. I just found that Pink Floyd The Wall, which is probably, that's an OG press. That's probably like a $50 record, I would think. And that was $2. What about you, Brandon?
I'd probably say the biggest spread in my collection is Audio Slave Revelation. I bought that brand new out of a bargain bin for $11.99 or $12.99, and I mean it's worth about sealed about $550, $600, somewhere around there. Other ones would be James Blunt, Back from Bedlam. I got that for $11.99, and that's probably like a $550 album now. So yeah, there's a lot of those good things back in the early 2000s.
Yeah. How about you, Gary?
I don't know. Honestly, I mean, I don't normally. I mean, I'm really lazy when it comes to like getting on Discogs and putting in things to see what the price of. I mean, I know that I bought, you know, a White Album and The Wall albums of that, like at a yard sale type thing for a few bucks. And this would have been in the early 80s. And that the White Album had all the stuff in it. You know, it had the posters, the poster and the 4 pictures and everything in it. And that was in good shape. But, you know, I don't know what that would be, if that was an original pressing or not. I mean, it was from somebody that was older than me. So I'm guessing it probably was. I don't know value of it. I'm not good about the value of the records. I haven't gotten that far into it yet. I'm still learning about a lot of that.
You still have that, Gary?
I do, but I don't have all the stuff in it because I was an idiot when I bought it, and I'm like putting the pictures on my wall.
So Jeff, can I tell you my biggest regret? Like,
No.
you know, I've gotten over selling my collection, but I had one record. I spent $550 on this record. It's the most I've ever spent on a record. It was Samhain Initium. It was black wax with white streaks. I spent $550 on it. It was the prize of my collection. There was one point where I was heavy into Danzig Misfits and Samhain, and I had every Samhain pressing, colored or black. I had November Coming Fire in orange, but most of that now is easily over $1,000. But that Samhain, I've seen it go for over $2,000. When I sold my collection a few years ago, I think I let it go for like $800. And right now, easily it would be over a $2,000 record, you know. But
Wow,
that's a regret, you know. So that's my biggest regret in terms of getting rid of a record.
Yeah. That'll do it. I mean, those are the ones that like, or ones that you saw out in the wild and you didn't pull the trigger on because maybe at that time you just didn't have the ability to buy it, and then it's gone, and now you realize it's like 3 times what you could have bought it for.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Like a lot. Like Frank tells a story about Van Halen Balance that he could have got for $50. I've heard Frank tell that story, and it's like, yeah, now that's like easily a $500 record, right? It's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
That album used to fall in my lap like it was just rain coming out of the sky.
Yeah,
I used to pick up Balance all over the place. Even had 2 sealed copies.
wow.
But over the
And
course
you
of
don't have it anymore?
well, I just have my one now. No,
Okay.
I sold. I thought I was being smart when I sold those. Like, oh, I'm getting $100 for them, and
Yeah.
mistake. But oh well.
Well, sometimes you sell things because you might need the money at that point.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I do have I did have original pressings. Well, I still have them, but I opened them of Use Your Illusion 1 and 2. But when I got them, they were sealed at a thrift store. So that's probably one of my biggest finds. I actually have a video of a flip video. Is one of my first videos of the thrift store find where I found those. You know, I know they're still super valuable, even open, but I needed to listen to them because I really do enjoy those albums. So
I have
Yeah.
more regrets of selling comic books than I do records. I know, like, the first time I saw the Rolling Stones, the way I got the money to buy the tickets was I sold like a small stack of comic books. I got $100 for them because the tickets were like $50 each. And my wife and I were going to go see them. And I remember my wife being all excited because she's like, "Oh my God, you just got $100 for those records." And I'm like, "Yeah, they're worth a lot more than that." And she's like, "Yeah, but you have all those comic books
Yeah.
in your room." She instantly started thinking we could sell this and sell that and everything. And I'm like, I'm not into that. That's not why I have.
Yeah.
I said the only reason I sold them is because I was desperate for that money at the time. You know, we didn't really have any extra money, and I had not seen the Rolling Stones. And, you know, even though this was back like in '94, you know, at that time, you every tour you thought, well, this might be the last time
right.
you can ever see the Stones. And so I sold, but you would understand, you know, Josh, what part of what that stack of records was the original Dark Knight series by Frank Miller.
Oh yeah.
So from the
Fantastic.
80s. So unfortunately, that was part of it that I got rid of.
Well,
And-
you want to talk about selling stupid comic books for no money? I had 2 copies, New Mutants '98, first appearance of Deadpool, and this is not going that far back. I was this was the last girl before Michelle. She wanted to go to see Lana Del Rey in Charlotte, and I was like, and I was dead broke because I had recently been divorced and all that. And I was like, okay, well, let me sell some of my comics. I sold the first appearance of Moon Knight, and I sold 2 copies of the first appearance of Deadpool. For the first appearance of Deadpool, I got $100 each. These were mint. If I had them graded, they'd be worth thousands of dollars because the movie came out shortly after and his character blew up. I sold the first appearance of Venom. I sold the first appearance of Cable. Like, it's crazy. Yeah. And I let them go for like next to nothing,
Yeah, I had the original comic book with Spider-Man when they introduced the black suit,
Yep.
Yeah.
I had that, and like whatever. I was younger. I mean, I bought it when it first came out and held on to it. And then, like everybody else sold it because I needed money. And like, oh my God, I can't even think like what that would be worth now. But
I've never been about, I don't know. I guess that's why with records, I can't get all hung up on the value of it. A record is only worth to me what it's worth to me. I mean, I did that with comic books. Like if there was a comic book that somehow it meant something to me that I wanted it and it was more expensive, I'd be willing to trade another comic book for it that even if I'm losing a few bucks, I mean, now, do I regret some of those? Yes. I will admit that, but I'm trying not to and it's hard for me sometimes, watching like all your guys' channels. And I hear you talk. I want to try not to get into the collector part of it in a way. And it's hard not to, because that's in me. Right. But I don't want to go crazy into it with vinyl. I'm trying to just stick with, I see certain things come out and I tell myself, do not spend that money on that, get a repress of it. I don't want to get into, I've got to have that because I don't know. I don't want to get to where I'm doing stupid things. Like I had the first appearance of the Punisher. And
that's a big one.
That was from the 70s. That was in Spider-Man. I can't remember what issue it is, but I traded that for something of less value. But I could probably see myself doing that with the record. Like if I had a record of somebody I didn't care about as much, I would trade it for something of less value to get something I wanted. Or I would also, that'd be something like if I had something that I knew meant a lot to one of you guys and it didn't to me, I'd send it away. I wouldn't worry about, hey, that's worth this amount of money or whatever. I don't know. I'm just trying not to be that. Which I know is it's kind of stupid. I feel kind of stupid when I hear Brandon talk and the way he knows all about his records. He had, the way you're able to flip records and do all this stuff. And I'm like, I guess I probably should be smarter with my records than I am. But I don't know, because, it's just, it's music. It's whatever it means to me. I don't know. The value part of it is, and I'm very stupid about that. I admit that,
No, I mean, I don't think it's.
Sounds like you're healthy. Sounds like you're healthy about it.
Yeah, I think
you're not letting yourself go crazy. Like that's really important to keep yourself in a mindset where you're not going crazy over it.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I easily could. it's there. A part of it is, but.
Right, and the thing is, Gary, it's like I think that when you decide to collect records, like my son has decided to collect records. I told him, I'm like, well, what are your favorite albums of all time? And for a 14-year-old, he's only got 14 years of experience. So like, he knows like Michael Jackson's Thriller. And I'm like, well, here, you can have my copy of Thriller, and I think that when I started to recollect, that's one of the things I tried to to do was say like, okay, well, what were the records that I had before that I listened to all the time? And, you know, me and you both love Faster Pussycat, that second album, right? And that was an album I went out and got right away because it was like, I know this is crazy that I'm buying Faster Pussycat before I'm buying, Abbey Road, but I'm going to listen to this Faster Pussycat. I know I'm going to listen to it, not that I'm not going to listen to Abbey Road, but I just know the first Beatles album I bought, was definitely like Rubber Soul or Revolver, the ones that I'm going to listen to the most. And that's what I tried to tell my son is like, let's think about the albums that you want the most. Now, granted, 90% of those for him are Kanye West and Kid Cudi. But he's got a Metallica record. He's got, like I said, the Michael Jackson, he's got the Tears for Fears now. So I think that's the cool thing is, and no matter how old you are, if you're on a limited budget or you don't want to go crazy, focus on the ones that you want to play. I think that's the best bet.
Yeah,
go ahead, Gary.
Well, actually, I was going to mention you because, some of the things I've watched on your channel when people ask you all these questions and these different things. One of the things I like about you and your channel is even though, your channel's pretty big, you always have this attitude of, hey, whatever equipment you have, that's cool. And, whatever records you like or, pressing, you never come off as a snob. I think some people in the vinyl community definitely come off as a snob, man. They come off as, they're all about the equipment, they're all about certain pressings. And there's nothing wrong with wanting that stuff, or having it. But, they're very much like, oh, well, I've got this particular turntable because I don't want this other piece of shit. And, if you're listening to records with this system, you might as well not even be listening to records,
Right.
And that is something that is just, I find very offensive because there's so many different levels of people, buying records and, you guys are talking about, like Brandon, you're at a point where you're only going to buy really nice, records, nice condition records and everything. I'm slowly getting to that point, but I think that's, we were talking about your channel, why is it so popular? Well, it's because of you, and that's a part of it. I think even though you have you are sophisticated in what you own and everything and, your knowledge, but you never make people feel stupid who don't have that knowledge, who are at a lower level. You were just talking about, somebody just asked you about your, what you recommend not music wise, but equipment wise. And, you were just talking about little things that you can do that make a big difference, and I thought, wow, this is great. I don't know. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. You were getting ready to say something before I went on that.
No. Thanks for saying it, man. I really appreciate it. And you're exactly right. Like that stuff is of great importance to me because when you really get down to, just the brass tacks of all of this stuff, the only thing I care about is your passion. Like that's all that matters. I don't care if that comes through a Crosley or if it comes through a $50,000 turntable. It doesn't make a difference. It's the love and passion for what you do. I'll find myself here on YouTube sometimes watching videos of crap that I'm not even into. Like when women showing their craft rooms. Like I could care less about crafting. When you see these rooms that they have done, much like our musical lives, and the passion they have for it, and it's just like that is just freaking cool. Like I feel your life force, I feel your energy, and that's really, really contagious to me. So I don't care if you're spending it on a Crosley and you have 10 records, or if you have 10,000 in the most expensive system in the world. It's our love for music. That's what I love. That's one of the guys that's been commenting here is Mike from Mike's Got the Spins. Mm-hmm. And
you know, he started a channel not that long ago. He commented on a lot of our stuff, but he started a channel. I love his channel because that's exactly how he is. He's just very excited, you know, when he's showing you something. And a lot of times, you know, it's something, it's, you know, it's a very common record that you can find, you know, you can find for $5. And, you know, he's got it on display. He's showing, you know, he's telling you what a fantastic record this is. And I'm like, that is awesome. And, you know, a lot of times I feel the same way, the record that he's talking about. But it's, you know, I like the way he gets excited about whatever record he's showing. It doesn't matter if it's some, you know, cool, eclectic record, you know, kind of thing where, oh, look how cool I am. I love this record that you don't. No, he doesn't care if this is, you know, Little Queen by Heart. You know what I mean? He's going to say, look what I got. This is fantastic record.
That's awesome.
I think that's awesome. I think that's great, man.
That's really
We
cool.
do have some comments, but first I'd like to say, Brandon, I like to watch videos of women too. I'm just going to leave it at that.
I was going to make a joke.
I enjoy those videos. All right, let's see. Music and House said, crazy how jazz is finding a new resurgence. I never saw that coming. Yeah, absolutely. And I think the vinyl resurgence helps jazz because I don't think there's anything better. I know a lot of people don't like jazz, but when you listen to a jazz record, the way it was recorded and you can really hear the separation of the instruments, a lot of times you feel like you're in the room with these artists. So yeah, I totally agree with that. Flat Rounded Spun says, I'd rather people have entry-level equipment and play records than not playing anything at all. You're absolutely right. For me, when my son got into collecting music, it got me so excited that we shared the same passion. Mike's got the span, said, that's it, Brandon. So he's excited. John, the Dark Wizard, says, yeah, see people that they show Britney Spears and then show Led Zeppelin, and you're like, what? Hey, man, you're going to love eclectic taste. Come on, people. And Mike says, thank you, Gary. Yeah, I mean, I love eclectic taste. You know, I don't listen to Britney Spears, but I love R&B. Nothing 90s R&B, man, it gets me every single time. You know, I mean, it just puts me back in that time period. I absolutely love it. I also love, you know, the Motown, the old Motown records.
Oh, yeah.
But I like Slayer too. You know, it's just the way I am. So.
Well, there's nothing more satisfying, you know, like Brandon, you just did a video where you bought that Talk album and you were saying, oh yeah, you know, like I didn't realize, you know, I hadn't heard of this album before until I heard Jeff talk about it. Or, you know, Josh, you're talking about how that Eel song, you know, just resonated with you so much. And, you know, any artist that we turn somebody onto and they get it, I mean, there's nothing more satisfying. I used to be a big one for making mixtapes or mix CDs for people and like, you got to listen to this is awesome. You know, it's just realizing, you know, you're not the only one who digs that artist, or just getting people to get into the same music. Like Lana Del Rey is one. I never would have bought a Lana Del Rey album, and then Josh talked her up and got me one of their records, and then I bought another one, and then he got me a CD. You know, that's an artist I never would have really thought twice about. You know, and I can say that for anybody who's bought, you know, got me VCLT, like Gary got me that Rainbow Straight Between the Eyes album. It's like, holy crap, you know, I can't believe, you know, I never discovered this before, and this is great. You know, I mean, that's the great thing about this reciprocation in the VC is turning people on to new music or new genres, or getting them excited about an artist that you're already excited about.
Yeah, Gary, you made my day. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Brandon.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I just said I spun that talk again this morning. It's an awesome album, man.
I love it. And that makes me so happy, you know, to know, like, yes, you know, I was right about it. I'm glad it wasn't just some, you know, weird kick I was on, you know. it means a lot to know that Brandon digs it too,
Yeah.
because we really, I respect the musical opinions of everybody I'm friends with in the VC, and if you say you really like the record, like, well, there's got to be something to that, because you guys don't listen to shitty music,
Right.
and so that was the way I was with Metallica or Lana Del Rey, or a lot of stuff that I never, Wasp. There's no way I would have ever thought to, buy an album by Wasp, and then like, yeah, they're great. They're fantastic. But
Yeah, Gary made my day the other day when you posted that picture of Fantagram, because you got it like a month ago and you're still listening to it. I was like,
Yeah.
hell yes.
yeah,
I felt like I was a champion. It's like I heard it another.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I never really would have thought of it. You had mentioned it. Yeah, you had mentioned it before, and I remember looking up like a couple videos, and then I forgot about it. And then you sent that CD, and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember this. And I don't know. It's like, to me, it's got like this modern sound, but like there's some kind of 80s thing in there too, or something about it. I don't know. I dig it. It's different. I like it.
Yeah, it's totally different. I encourage everyone to listen to Fanagram, especially that album 3. I think that's their best, even though their biggest hit is off their second album. But it's got an 80s feel. It's got, like, you could tell they're influenced by new wave, but it's got more of a techno beat, more of a modern beats. But they definitely incorporate guitar, and I don't know. There's just something about that album, and there's something about that band that, I think the lyrics are fantastic. I think the album is fantastic. And I think that if they were in the 80s, it'd be a new wave band. This is kind of the current state of new wave. I really do feel is a band like Fanagram. So yeah, everybody go check them out.
Yeah, Lord Huron. I never heard of them. I just don't listen to radio, so I never heard of them. Had no idea. They weren't even on my radar. And then we did that video where it's like album recommendations that we would recommend to each other. And you showed that Strange Trails album, and I remember buying that and thinking like, oh my God, how did I never know this band existed? And then the follow-up album, you got me that, and I'm like, this is the best album ever. I can't believe, like, this. I didn't know I would fall in love with an album the way that I did. Those 2 records is.
Yeah, a lot of people, I think you get to a certain age and you stop looking for new music. Like, I don't listen to the radio, but a lot of times what I do is I just search the internet. I look for independent radio stations around the country. I don't look for corporate radio stations because they're paid to play particular artists. But if you find an independent radio station and you go look at their playlist, most radio stations will say playlist. That's how I discovered Lord Huron. That's how I discovered Dawes. That's how I discovered Lucero. And then talking to people in a record store. But I never stopped searching for new bands and new music, because even though I'm much older, I'm now close to 50, and some of these artists are 21 years old. I don't feel like an old man listening to young music. I'm just looking for something that resonates with me, and connects with me. And my son helps with that, and introducing me to a lot of different artists. So yeah, I just think, don't stop looking, guys. If you're out there and you feel like, oh, I haven't discovered a new band. I met someone the other day and he goes, the last time I liked a new band was Nirvana. And I was like, okay, so what were your favorite bands before Nirvana? He's like, well, I liked the 70s bands, Led Zeppelin and Kiss and Deep Purple. And I'm like, okay. And then how'd you feel about the 80s music? Well, I didn't really like the 80s music, but then I liked Nirvana. I was like, okay, well, let's go talk about some bands, because there are bands that probably fit that mold of the music you like in the 70s and that early 90s rock that kind of emulated the 70s, that, like a Dawes, which I know they're more singer-songwriter, they're not heavy, but they definitely are steeped in 70s rock, right? You're just going to find it. And if you're not going to find that shit on the radio, that's for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 42, and I figure like there's going to be no band that is ever going to, speak.
Did you age 4 years and 30 minutes?
Like, I'm trying to come clean about my age, okay?
Well,
And,
then when are you going to do it?
Jeff was getting carded when he visited me.
How damn long we been streaming? Holy cow.
No, you're not
He
old
was
enough.
38 when we started. He's 42. We're still streaming.
Exactly.
Well, he'll keep going. So.
all right, 44, and that's my final offer. But get to an age and think, oh, there's never going to be any album that resonates with me the way Houses of the Holy did, or the way Quadrophenia did, or the way Abbey Road did. And I mean, that's why it helps to have somebody like Josh who's like, no, check this out, there's actually good music that's coming out today, or I mean, new music. And I mean, I'm a big synth pop fan, but I would have never heard of this band before. I would have never been like, oh, Phanogram.
Well, Jeff, the other thing that go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What I was going to say is that one thing I always try to tell people too is that, like, when you talk about Abbey Road or Physical Graffiti, you've lived your whole life with that album. There's memories attached, whether it be your first kiss or your first whatever, right? So it's going to hard to be top those albums no matter what. You can't listen to, like, if someone says, well, this band, I'll never love this band as much as Led Zeppelin. Well, you haven't lived with this band for 40 years, right? Like, my whole life I've been listening to Led Zeppelin and Kiss because my dad played those bands. So, like, you have to take that as a grain of salt. You have to take that with you when you listen to new music. Like, yeah, there's a reason why. Chris Rock says a joke. Whatever you listen to when you started fucking, you're going to listen to for the rest of your life. And that's why I still listen to Whitesnake, all right? Like, and I know you're thinking, like, you were listening to Whitesnake when you were first fucking. Yes,
you were. Yes.
I totally was.
That's awesome.
Now, were you by yourself at the time? Or
No, I
somebody
luckily
there?
had a girl,
Question,
believe it
Gary.
or not. I mean, I know it's hard to believe, but I did. Dude, I ran into her not too long ago. She's still nice.
Well,
So much for behaving ourselves when Brandon's part of our group.
I know. Way to go, Josh.
Oh,
Exactly. Well, what were you listening to, Gary? What'd you put on, like Air Supply or something?
I'm not saying.
You're not saying.
man. I think
No,
that's
I
a
was gonna
question
say
that should
Benny
go
Goodman.
around, actually.
Exactly.
What was it, Gary?
Benny Goodman. Maybe so, I think it was Robert Johnson at the time. Yeah.
You put on the blues?
All
Yep.
right.
All right, Jeff, what about you? What was the band?
Level 42.
Level 42. All right. And Brandon?
Man, it was probably Ghetto Boys and Poison.
There you go, man. Oh my God. I used to have the what was the name of that album? Bushwick Bill, his first solo album from the Ghetto
Oh, yeah.
Boys. Yeah, that was a good one. My mind's playing tricks on me. Right?
Yep.
Fantastic.
Yeah, well, the monkeys are great, like bedtime, sort of like when you're trying to get a woman in the mood,
The monkey.
throw on some sometime in the morning, or Tapioca Tundra. Totally, Barry White and the Monkees are two great, like, candlelight, sensual,
Nothing gets her in the mood.
aphrodisiacs. Yeah.
I can tell you that Whitesnake does not turn on Michelle. I've never put on the Whitesnake album or any of them, and she's been
She hasn't jumped on the hood of your car?
No, she has not. It doesn't work.
Oh, man.
David Coverdale has lied to me through song. She does enjoy that music, but it doesn't put her in the mood. I'll just put it that way. Yeah. Too funny. Hopefully Michelle watches this. I love you, babe.
Yeah, I have a feeling she's not into 2.5 hour videos
Oh,
talking
no,
about
no.
record
She can't watch
collecting.
my
Probably
5-minute
not.
coming soon.
God. Well, I think I'm going to have to get out of here.
Yeah, I think that I have to work. Well, actually, I've got a concert tomorrow, so got a long day.
Concert? Who are you going to see?
Earl Sweatshirt, man. I told you, taking my
Oh
son.
yeah, forgot.
Oh,
Earl-
that guy.
Yeah, Earl
Earl
Sweatshirt.
sweatshirt.
Yeah, I'll let you know how it goes if I'm still alive. Yeah. I just hope it's not like a nightclub. That's the only thing I pray, that it's not like a nightclub where there's people doing illegal substances. Like, I could take the one illegal substance, but not the illegal substance that's on a mirror. I don't want my son to be exposed to
Yeah.
too much too soon. That's what I'm gonna say. Too much too soon. Let's hope it's not like that, guys.
Well, let's hope
Yeah.
not.
Hope
Let's
you guys
hope
have
not.
a good time, man.
Fingers crossed. All right. I'll let you know next week, guys. You can tune in and I'll give you an Earl Sweatshirt review.
Nice.
I will
Yeah,
wait.
and find out if Landon's traumatized.
It's Carter. It's not the 6-year-old. I don't want people calling, the parental agencies.
Well, I just love the
Yeah,
idea of you taking your 6-year-old to a concert like
I'm
that.
not taking my 6-year-old. Landon would go see Kiss though, or Spice Girls.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd go see
Either
Spice
one.
Girl.
Yep. He's in love with Scary Spice. Gotta find him a vintage poster. That's what I'm gonna do.
Funny.
Yeah.
Went over 2 hours last week. Yeah, we did. We're at least 2 hours and counting now.
Scary Spice, the one she was on a one of those singing shows or something, right?
I don't know. I
America's Got Talent or something.
might
Wasn't
be.
she a judge?
I don't know. Here's what I do. I always piss off my girlfriend because, she loves the Spice Girls and I don't mind it, but I'll always be like, which one's Skanky Spice again? And she gets angry every single time.
And you laugh every single time. right?
Exactly. Which one was Skanky Spice? It totally pisses her off.
Yankee Spice was the one that wore the gym clothes.
Exactly. Yeah, that was my favorite. I wouldn't throw any of them out of my house if I was single. All right.
Okay. Well, with that,
All right.
I do have to work in the morning.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you, guys.
Guys,
Thank you, BC.
been real as always. Thanks for watching, guys.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
Yeah, thanks,
for watching.
everybody that watched.
Next week we'll be back, maybe with Chris, maybe with Aaron. Who knows how many we'll have? But yeah, thanks for all the comments. Thanks for everybody tuning in. Very cool. And see you next week.
Bye,
All
guys.
right. Bye,
Thanks,
guys.
guys.